GBNews.
This year, the adventure of a lifetime could be on us.
Courtesy of Riviera Travel, there's a terrific £10,000 holiday for two to be won. Choose from over 30 worldwide destinations like Thailand, South Africa, New Zealand or even Sri Lanka. We'll also boost your bank account with a fabulous £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I take it as a huge compliment that people remember it. I mean, let's be honest.
Goodness.
How many times do people actually remember something you have done on television? And people remember that. But I take it as a huge compliment because, let's face it, Morecambe and Wise were loved. They are probably two of the greatest comics that we have ever produced in this country. And their legacy is that even, I think Eric died in 1984 when I was working in America. And so we're talking about, over 40 years ago. There are at least two generations of young people who now watch them on television, who laugh because they think they are funny. You know, they left us that legacy of what it is like to be a good comic. And I had the pleasure of working with them on that. How many people can say, well, you know, people will remember a particular thing you did in your career as a television broadcaster? And the fact that people did love them, I take as, you know, when people say to me, what was it like to work with Eric and Ern? They want to know, because I'm that vicarious link with them still, because there aren't too many people around still that can say they did work with them. So I mean, yes, of course, I've got, you know, in 60 years of working in television, there are lots of other things that I've done, but I'm always, and that people remember me for reading the news. They remember us for all sorts of things, and it's a compliment always.
And you read in the news, that all comes together, starts in the 1970s, which to me was the greatest time in broadcasting. I think it started to dip off slightly after that. The 70s, I think, they were my...
They were your heyday.
I just think everything, and I think it had a lot to do with what was attainable to us as viewers, which was very little. We lived in a world that was divorced from the world of TV, and it was magical.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Very, very good afternoon to you, and a happy Friday. It's a nightmare on Downing Street. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. I'm so excited I can barely talk. A former Labour deputy leader has called Keir Starmer weak and naive. One Labour Party MP says the Prime Minister needs a miracle, while another simply says he's finished. And with both Angela Rayner and Wes Streeting poised to launch leadership coups, are we entering the final days of Sir Keir Starmer? And the Home Office released new footage of returns flights as they announced that 60,000 illegal migrants and criminals have been removed since the election. But could we really be celebrating this news? And the controversial Algerian Olympic boxing champion Emain Khalif has admitted for the first time that he has male sex chromosomes, adding, "I am not a trans woman." But on today's show, I'll be joined by the fearless campaigner Baroness Sharon Davis to ask, why did it take so long for the truth to come out? And astonishing data from the United Nations has Al-Qaeda is 50 times bigger now than it was when bin Laden's terrorists carried out the 9/11 atrocity. And with illegal immigration simply out of control, is Britain inviting terror onto our own shores? And a man in Worcestershire who has £60,000 to live, who paid £60,000 to live in an off-grid pirate ship house, fears that his dream could be sunk. And he'll join me to tell me all, and that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, to show, it's a pleasure to have your company. It's a nightmare on Downing Street. Can Sir Keir Starmer last the weekend? Everywhere he looks, he can't get a good headline. He can't get any slack. Baroness Harman calling him weak and naive. Graham Stringer in this very studio saying yesterday he's finished. Liam Byrne saying he needs a miracle. Starmer loyalists are saying if you make a move on the Prime Minister, there could be a general election. Even citing GBNews, saying that they can't get away with completely changing a mandate to bring a socialist in, a left-winger, without facing the electorate. We're also hearing rumours there could be a fresh napalm dump on the Prime Minister by the Sunday newspapers about the allegations that he knew much more than he's letting on about the relationship between Epstein-Mandelson and when he made that appointment to him as the US ambassador. It's absolutely kicking off. We've got all the best coverage, all the best experts. Don't go anywhere. Buckle up. It's going to be one hell of a 3 hours. Get in touch, GBNews.com/your say is the way to do so. We can scan the QR code on your screens now. But here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories, that breaking news this hour that serial killer Steve Wright has been sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder of 17-year-old Victoria Hall in 1999. Wright is also sentenced to 12 years for the kidnapping of Victoria and 9 years for the attempted kidnapping of Emily Doherty. All of the sentences will run concurrently. Wright is also already serving a whole life sentence for the murders of 5 women near Ipswich in 2006. Elsewhere, the government will publish shortly the Mandelson files, Downing Street has said. It's not thought any documents will be released today. It says the Prime Minister remains under pressure from within Labour ranks over the Mandelson scandal. It's thought the total number of government documents related to Mandelson could be close to 100,000. Sir Keir Starmer apologised yesterday to Epstein's victims for believing the peer's lies about his relationship with the paedophile financier. Meanwhile, former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is said to be preparing a bid to oust Sir Keir Starmer as Labour leader. Several Labour MPs are calling for Sir Keir Starmer to fire his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. Labour Minister Mike Tapp spoke to GB News earlier today about his faith in the Prime Minister.
With absolute respect to Baroness Harman, she hasn't seen the files. Neither have I, neither have the public. But I do know that Keir Starmer's a good man. I do know that he means it when he apologises. And I also know that he's working hard with Jess Phillips, for example, to ensure that we reduce violence against women and girls and make the country safer for them. So I trust the Prime Minister on this, and I'm confident that when these files are released, the public will agree with that.
In other news, 3 African countries have agreed on an illegal migrant returns deal with Britain after the Home Secretary threatened visa sanctions. More than 3,000 migrants and foreign criminals from Namibia, Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo will now have their deportations fast-tracked. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood gave them a month to start cooperating or face a sliding scale of penalties that would have culminated in a ban on visas for their citizens. The police watchdog is investigating allegations of harassment, trolling and a threat against a Rotherham grooming gang victim. The Independent Office for Police Conduct launched 2 separate investigations relating to South Yorkshire Police last year, GBNews can disclose. The investigations are assessing if South Yorkshire Police was involved in online harassment, stalking and leaking personal information about the victim. In response, South Yorkshire Police said, "We are aware of the allegations and continue to support the IOPC's investigation." Elsewhere, Sir Keir Starmer's flagship Chagos Islands bill has been pulled from the parliamentary calendar as pressure grows on the Prime Minister to rethink plans to hand sovereignty to Mauritius. Labour peer Lord Kempsell confirmed the legislation will not return to the Commons before MPs leave for recess in 6 days' time. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has appeared to soften his stance on the deal, saying Sir Keir made the best agreement he could following what he described as productive talks over the UK-US military base on Diego Garcia. Sir Elton John has said it was truly sickening to learn of how the Daily Mail breached his family's privacy in relation to the birth of his son Zachary, the High Court has heard. In a witness statement, Sir Elton described the press intrusions, which also included articles about his own health, as outside even the most basic standards of human decency. The musician and his husband David are among 7 people, including Prince Harry, Elizabeth Hurley and Baroness Doreen Lawrence, suing the publisher of the newspaper and the Mail on Sunday for breaches of privacy. Their publisher, Associated Newspapers Limited, denies all allegations of unlawful information gathering. He gave evidence today, appearing at the High Court via a video link. Numerous flood warnings are in effect across the UK after January ended with record-breaking rainfall and February has shown no sign of reprieve. Persistent downpours have left the ground saturated in many areas and rivers bursting their banks. As of this morning, more than 70 flood warnings had been issued across England and Scotland. The Environment Agency has also warned that river levels will continue to rise over the coming days as further rain is expected. And preparations are underway in Milan ahead of the Winter Olympics opening ceremony this evening. Italian authorities have tightened security around Milan's San Siro Stadium, which will provide the stage for the main part of a ceremony where US pop singer Mariah Carey and Italian singer Andrea Bocelli will perform. Meanwhile, hundreds of protesters are gathering to oppose the presence of US ICE agents and the closure of schools and streets in the city ahead of the opening tonight. The event will combine elements from both co-hosts Cortina and Milan, seeking to reflect both city and mountain life. Those are the latest headlines. More news in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Are we witnessing the final days of Sir Keir Starmer? Because a former Deputy Labour leader has called the Prime Minister weak and naive. One Labour MP says the Prime Minister now needs a miracle. And another said in this very studio yesterday, he's finished. And now we have Angela Rayner and West Streeting poised to launch leadership coups. Oh, we're now seeing the final days of Sir Keir Starmer as our Prime Minister. Once again, the weekend approaches. It's a nightmare on Downing Street. We're joined in the studio by GB News' political editor Chris Hope and also by the former Labour advisor, first time in the studio. Welcome to you, sir, Luke Sullivan. Chris, let's be honest. Here's a Prime Minister who cannot get a good headline no matter how hard he tries. Nobody's on receiving mode about pride of Britain, whatever it is. No one's listening. It's a circular firing squad wherever you look. And a lot of people are saying, could this be the weekend where the Prime Minister sits down, has a glass of Chardonnay and thinks, do you know what? It's over. It's time for me to throw the town in.
It could be. I don't think it is. It is the weekend when he goes back. We don't know where he is this weekend because Number 10 have been telling us that for about 18 months for security reasons. He could be in Chequers or in his home in Number 10. He'll be having a think, how do I deal with this? In many ways, he's outsourced a lot of politics in his time as Prime Minister to other people, the economy to Rachel Reeves, the election campaign when he won it to Pat McFadden, difficult campaigning issues. to Morgan McSweeney. He's outsourced everything, and indeed, US special relationship to Peter Mandelson. So now he's furious he's been let down, but a lot of this is back on him. He's got to take control of this, be more political, be the person he isn't, frankly, and that's a challenge he's facing. I was there at that Pride in Place, not Pride of Britain, Pride in Place, they call it.
No one knows or remembers what it is, because it's all about Mandelson, it's all about the calamity.
He gave a good speech, but he did say at one point, I mean, I know no one's going to know what I've said. It won't be on the front page tomorrow, and it wasn't, because all we asked about him was about Peter Mandelson. He said sorry 5 times, apologised 3 times, but is that enough? He's got to really, frankly, own the fact that he ignored the evidence of that relationship. He was incurious Keir, which is odd, isn't it, for a senior barrister not to delve further into that relationship, but he didn't do it, and now he's facing a crisis of confidence. I should say, by the way, Angela Rayner...
Yeah, let's talk about these socialist wagons that are circling around Downing Street. Everyone's licking their lips, perhaps, at there being a coup, either from West Streeting, from Andy Burnham or from Angela Rayner. But you've already said Angela Rayner, she's not really fit for the job.
I just want to look at her. Is she fit for the job? 5 months ago today, Laurie Magnus, who is the advisor on ministerial interests for the Prime Minister, wrote a letter to the Prime Minister, and the end says simply this, looking into whether the unfortunate failure, he says, to settle her stamp duty tax bill on a flat in Hove. She said simply, and this he said, it leads me to advise you that she cannot be considered to have met the highest possible standards of proper conduct as envisaged by the ministerial code. She breached the code 5 months ago. Why can she possibly replace the PM right now, the top job in government? It's not credible, and part of the reason why there's no real obvious candidate to replace her, for other reasons too, West Streeting is not the right person too, I think. He'll stay in post.
OK, let's bring in you now, Luke Sullivan. It's disastrous. Let's be absolutely honest. There is no good way out of this, perhaps. We have the May elections coming, predicted to be an utter bloodbath. The Labour Party could be wiped out altogether in Wales, perhaps even in Scotland, eviscerated in the Red Wall. Wherever you look, who'd want the job right now, being the Prime Minister?
Well, I think that's a fair question. I mean, the Prime Minister, I think... wants to be Prime Minister and is doing everything he can to fight for his political future. And I think, as Chris set out just a minute ago, that was what the Prime Minister was doing yesterday. He will continue. I think last night at Chequers he had a reception for Labour MPs. He is going to continue to sell his case strong and hard. And yes, being Prime Minister is tough, and there are no good options at the moment, but he will continue to fight because he believes he's the right person for the job.
Starmer loyalists today, allies saying if there is a coup, we go to the polls, we go to the people, we have a general election, because quite simply they are stating, and they're right, if Angela Rayner gets in, or West Streeting, or Andy Burnham, whomever it may be, and they have a more left-wing mandate, the electorate didn't vote for that. It would have to be put to the people. But here's the point. They would lose the election. In the poll we're about to cover, Angela Rayner's guaranteed to lose a seat to Reform. West Streeting will lose his seat to a pro-Gaza independent. Even the challengers are on quicksand.
But, the one thing I think we can, and I hope I don't come to regret this, I think the one thing we can definitely guarantee is there will not be a general election anytime soon, even in the event that Keir Starmer is not the Prime Minister. No Labour MP... no Labour Prime Minister is going to want to go to the polls.
Turkey's voting for Christmas.
And look, also, I understand why people make that political point about general elections. That isn't how our system works. Our system is a parliamentary democracy. In the event that the Prime Minister changes, as it did numerous times under the Conservatives, that didn't mean there was a general election straight away, because it's a parliamentary system of democracy.
But the Starmer loyalist here even mentions GBNews. You say we can claim constitutional grounds for not having a general election. He said, but in the world, the frenzied media world of TikTok, of YouTube and GBNews, is it really sustainable? It doesn't feel sustainable to me. That's the point. The genie is out of the bottle now. The public won't stand for it.
I mean, look, I don't know who it is, and I hear that argument, and it's an understandable point. There is no Labour politician who's going to want to go to the polls.
Because they'll lose.
If they can, of course, given where the polls are at the moment, they're in a very difficult place. But the only way through this for the Labour Party, for the country, is yes, this is a a political crisis for the Prime Minister and the Labour Party. But they have to find a way of turning this round, getting back, which there is good work going on. This week we had the cancer plan. As Chris said, we had the Pride in Place policy announcement. And they aren't. And
no one is listening.
And that is completely... And I recognise that, and you are right. And that is the job of the politicians who have agency to seek to turn it around.
Chris?
It's a challenge, isn't it? I was interested in that speech yesterday. He talked about almost the personal mandate he received back in July 2024, and we saw that so often with these Tory PMs in trouble. They reach back into that and they say, well, people back me to carry on, and I think that's part of it, isn't it? He feels he can't let them down.
Yeah, look, I think the Prime Minister is somebody who does reflect on what's happened, why it's happened. I think this is obviously the circumstances around this, the appointment, the vetting material. We're going to see warts and all in black and white so the public can judge the decisions. But the Prime Minister himself will rightly be looking back on that and recognising the decisions he made.
Surely he can't get away with throwing Morgan McSweeney off the top of the car park, metaphorically. He can't get away anymore with throwing underlings to the wolves. And the book has to stop with the Prime Minister.
And I think the Prime Minister himself will recognise that. I think he is somebody who... I mean, when I worked for him, he gave incredible support and licence to the people he appointed, whether they be elected or unelected, to get on and do the jobs. But he also stood by them and recognised that the buck stopped with him.
He's got a problem on this. He's got high tens of thousands of documents relating to Peter Mandelson being vetted. That will leak out, be published over the next few weeks and months, won't it? I mean, and how does he grip that? He's got to go further than the apologies he gave yesterday and simply say, there was enough out there not to hire Mandelson, but I ignored it. That seems to be the truth of what happened here.
I suspect, and I just wonder whether that is where the position you get to, because... And you know, the point about reflecting and on it, I think the line was conscience about the events. I do wonder if that's where we eventually get to. OK, stick with us if you could, Luke. I'd like to get to my next piece of bad news for Labour Party now, I'm afraid, because elsewhere... There can't be more.
And there is. An apocalyptic poll out today as Labour predicted to win just 38 seats at the next general election. And that would be their worst score in over 120 years, leaving them sixth behind even the SNP. And when you dive into the numbers, the entire Labour cabinet, all of them, all 21, set to lose their seats. And that's going to be 11 to Reform, 8 to the Green Party and 2 to Independents. It's the stuff of end of days. Let's now speak with the head of research at Find Out Now. That's the polling company Tyrone Sermon. Tyrone, always a pleasure to have your company. It's become something of a tradition on this show to have a Friday polling moment where the Labour Party is looking at an all-time low. And today makes for grim weekend reading for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine a lot of the drama happening in Westminster right now is founded on the fact that, well, these poll numbers are terrible and that will manifest itself in crises and leadership challenges and so forth. But I think the really interesting thing, though, is that you might have expected an even bigger week-on-week difference. Mandelson was an enormous story, enormous crisis for the Prime Minister, but truth be told, the numbers are the same as they were 3 months ago. So, you know, I suppose if someone was still voting Labour last week, they're still going to vote them this week. Their morale might be shaken, but their voting intentions, I suppose, remain the same. But yeah, Labour in fourth place is not good for them.
And when you look into the real granular detail, we're just talking about that in the studio, you're having week after week after week the supposed replacements for Sir Keir Starmer and Sir Keir Starmer himself losing their seats. This is the stuff of historical... You know, it's never happened before in the history of politics that a Prime Minister would lose their seat. A Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, would lose his seat. Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Rachel Reeves, Yvette Cooper, Ed Miliband. You could go on and on and on. They're all set to be wiped out.
Yeah, whenever you put the polls... we run them week to week, but even for us who run them all the time, it's kind of quite hard to sink in. I think there will be people out there saying, you know, in the middle of a term, poll numbers are normally lower. It normally recovers come election time. But, you know, we're so low now, I think in an unprecedented way for the governing party to be in fourth. I really don't see in the short or even medium term how they can come back from this.
Tyrone, as well as your own poll, I follow your excellent Twitter account. You look at everything that's going on, and I think there's a trend is emerging. Do you agree that the Labour Party has a particular problem with the working classes? They're now a party of the metropolitan areas. The polling shows that they're popular in London. They're popular with the professional classes, but the working classes, the Midlands, particularly men, those in the north, they've completely turned their back on the party. And that's a huge question about the Labour Party. It used to represent labourers, the working classes. That's completely gone.
Yeah, I think Labour trying to keep a coalition together is very difficult because on one hand, they've got graduates, ethnic minorities, kind of upwardly mobile people who are now wanting to vote Green. And then you've got the kind of traditional working classes who are now voting for reform. So when Labour can put both those pieces together, they've got enough for a commanding majority, as we saw in 2024. But when both sides start disintegrating, you know, they go down to 16% of the vote and might go down even lower.
Tyrone, when you look at that 3-week average on our screen there, if you look at this longer and longer, let's go back weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. We're seeing a consistent trend. We're seeing reform in front, but kind of levelling out, but a commanding victory, if you like. Conservatives up and down, not doing too bad. The Greens seem to have plateaued out, but the consistent trend seems to be for that red line. Well, it looks like it's the British downhill bobsleigh team at the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is how low can Labour go? My gut feel is that they probably can't go much lower than this. But I think probably the next big moment where we might see a shift. If you look at this graph, there's a big shift with reform last May. There's a big shift with Greens from last August. I think from there, come this May, we may see that rapidly change again. But yeah, I mean, there's been very little change. Reform far ahead, Labour far behind, and unclear how that can change, if ever.
OK, thank you very, very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have your expertise on the show as the head of research at Find Out Now, and that's Tyrone Sermon. Thank you very, very much indeed. And that'll make some grim reading for a Prime Minister. You might just want to draw the blinds and assume the fetal position. We'll try time now. Thank you to Chris. Thank you to Luke. It's time now for a brand new Great British giveaway. Your chance to get summer sorted with a luxury 10 grand holiday for two. And that's not all. There's 30 grand in tax-free moolah. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
This year, the adventure of a lifetime could be on us. Courtesy of Riviera Travel, there's a terrific £10,000 holiday for two to be won. You could be here exploring the magic of Egypt on a Nile River cruise. Or choose from over 30 worldwide destinations like Thailand, South Africa, New Zealand or even Sri Lanka. Because they have over 40 years' experience with handcrafted tours, you'll be safe in the knowledge that every step of the journey will be planned with you in mind. We'll also boost your bank account with a fabulous £30,000 in tax-free cash, which you'll be able to spend however you like this year. So what are you waiting for?
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, astonishing data from the United Nations today has Al-Qaeda now 50 times bigger than when bin Laden's terrorists carried out the 9/11 atrocity. And just how concerned should we be here in Britain? And also next, the Home Office have announced that a record 60,000 illegal migrants and criminals have been removed since the 2024 general election. But does that include small boat migrants? Spoiler, no. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:27. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Home Office have today announced that nearly 60,000 illegal migrants and convicted criminals have been removed or deported since the 2024 general election. They claim that more than 15,000 people were removed and 43,000 people left voluntarily after being told they were in the UK illegally. And this morning, the Democratic Republic of Congo have become the third country alongside Namibia and Angola to take back illegal migrants from the UK. But is there more to this story than meets the eye? Well, there always is, and let's delve into the details. I'm now joined by the Associate Editor of the Daily Sceptic, Laurie Wastel. Laurie, welcome to the show. So, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is trumpeting a huge victory. 60,000 illegal migrants and convicted criminals have been removed, but here's the question everybody is asking. Does that include any small boat immigrants?
Well, it would be pretty unlikely, I think, Martin. And of course, that is the issue that most people will be thinking about and imagining that these numbers might have something to do with. And I think it's perhaps worth even just thinking about Shabana Mahmood's own rhetoric here, which has been very strong, of course, this figure of 60,000. But here she's saying, I vowed to scale up removals of illegal migrants. I'll do whatever it takes to restore order and control. So there's very strong language. But as alluded to in your opening there, many of these returns actually are not even enforced returns, which is to say we're not putting them on a plane and sending them back. So a third are this category known as verified returns, which is that the Home Office has put them on a list liable for deportation, and then without even telling the Home Office they happen to have left the country, and then finally later on the Home Office finds out that they've gone when they check the passenger logs, and then they're supposed to be patting themselves on the back for a job well done there that they just happened to leave. Similarly, there is the figure of about a quarter of these migrants have actually been paid to leave. And in fact, Labour has disbursed about 40 million since taking office on that, such that illegal migrants who can come under that, come in that way, will potentially be being paid an average of £3,197 per return. So you come illegally, then you get paid to leave. I mean, this is an extraordinary state of affairs. And to imagine that a system like this, it represents a real success story for the Home Office, I think is quite far-fetched.
I think you raised some excellent points, Laurie, and it's also worth pointing out that's one of those people paid 500 quid to clear off was the Ethiopian rapist Hadesh Kabatu. Isn't it nice? You get a £500 sweetener for going back to Ethiopia, having committed a sex crime in Britain. I digress, but you're absolutely right to point out these people are just, their visas have expired, they've voluntarily flown off and then they've appeared on a database. But the message the government wants to send out is them getting tough, clamping down, boots through doors, you know, not quite ICE-style raids, but that feeling. And the point is this, if you come to Britain illegally, particularly from a country with which we have no returns deal, you're about as likely to leave Britain as I am to become an astronaut.
Well, quite. And so let's look at the actual figures for the enforced returns. That's about a quarter of that 60,000. Where are they going? Well, the majority of these are actually Europeans. They're not, for instance, the migrant who maybe many GB News viewers will have heard about. That awful story, was convicted of that sex attack against that teenage girl last night from Iran. But most of these were Europeans, and a lot of them were actually going back directly to Albania, and that was is mostly under the deal negotiated by the Tory party in the previous government for that specific returns deal. So that's not nothing. But to imagine that anyone coming in is being immediately booted out, I'm afraid is not quite true. And indeed, that means that some of the countries who have the highest rates of arrivals and sex attacks, for instance, like Afghanistan, that those are not necessarily being booted out immediately.
And Laurie, it's all fair and well to get Angola, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I suspect isn't very democratic, and Namibia to agree to this. But there are 35 prisoners from Angola, the DRC 12 and 8 from Namibia in British jails. What we really need is to get tough with countries like Pakistan. Take your rape gang perpetrators back. Stop visas. Get tough with the criminals from countries where there's a huge, big problem. But it seems that the government has no appetite for that.
No, quite. Well, it seems that if the government isn't exactly serious about addressing this problem as a problem, what it is serious about is making it look like it's addressing the problem. And thus we come to these kinds of figures where, oh, we have 60,000 people leaving. That seems strong. But again, you break it down into the specifics and it's much less of an impressive figure. And as you say, if you wanted to get tough about this, you would look at those key countries like Pakistan, for instance, and be much more robust in how you're negotiating with that. But at the moment, there's an unwillingness to actually take the substantive steps. But really, the Home Office is much more interested in just these sort of fig leaf gestures, which suggest it's getting tough, to obscure the reality.
Thank you very much for joining us, the most erudite and cerebral guests. Please come back on the show. That's the Associate Editor of The Daily Sceptic, Laurie Wassell. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Now, lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including data from the United Nations, astonishingly, has Al-Qaeda. They are now 50 times bigger today than when bin Laden's terrorists carried out the 9/11 atrocity. Just how concerned should we be in Britain about that today? But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top story: serial killer Steve Wright has been sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder of 17-year-old Victoria Hall in 1999. Wright is also sentenced to 12 years for the kidnapping of Victoria and 9 years for the attempted kidnapping of Emily Doherty. All of the sentences will run concurrently. Wright is already serving a whole life sentence for the murders of 5 women near Ipswich in 2006. Sir Keir Starmer remains under pressure from within Labour ranks as he seeks to steady the ship amid widespread anger over the Lord Mandelson scandal. Meanwhile, former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is said to be preparing a bid to oust the Prime Minister as Labour leader. And the police watchdog is investigating allegations of harassment, trolling and a threat against a Rotherham grooming gang victim. The Independent Office for Police Conduct launched 2 separate investigations relating to South Yorkshire Police last year, GB News can disclose. In response, South Yorkshire Police said, "We are aware of the allegations and continue to support the IOPC's investigation." And those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. More rain around today, and there will be some at the weekend, but more showery in nature, so better chance of some brighter spells, and it will be turning a little milder. Certainly feels cold out there today. Snow over the Grampians, turning more and more to rain as we go through. Some drier conditions getting into the south for a time, but look, as we go through the night, further heavy bands of showery rain coming into Wales and southwest England, staying pretty soggy in eastern Scotland and across northern England. That brisk wind continuing to feed into eastern Scotland in particular, bringing a chill, but most places staying at 3 to 5 degrees as we start Saturday morning. Saturday will be another day of showers, but for eastern Scotland, another day of persistent rain being fed in from the North Sea by that brisk and cold wind. Yet again, with some shelter, western Scotland should do okay for dry and bright weather, although showers can't be completely ruled out here. The weather turning a little drier in Northern Ireland, although again some showers here, and it'll be a case of watching these bands of showers moving across England and Wales. Some heavy ones, but it won't rain all day. There will be some drier slots in between. Quite a brisk wind blowing along the south coast, but the winds will be lighter over northeast England and southeast Scotland, coming from a different direction as well. So although there will still be some rain at times, it should feel a little warmer here as temperatures get up to 7 to 9 degrees. In the south, if we see a bit of blue sky, a bit of sunshine, we could get to 10, 11, maybe 12 degrees Celsius. As we go through Saturday night, still plenty of showers spiralling around the country, so nowhere really looks completely dry. Take note of that if you're heading out. And then on Sunday, the main focus for the wet weather looks like being across Scotland at this stage. So a different feel for western Scotland, finally getting some rain in here. And the rain turning a bit more showery in eastern Scotland. Further south, better chance of some lengthier drier spells, but as you can see, it's not completely dry. There will still be some showers around.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 10 million followers across our social media platforms. We're truly honoured to have your trust, one follower at a time.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. High winds are affecting the A9 Forth Road Bridge. On the M4 westbound, there are delays from junction 23A at Mega to junction 26 at Malpas. In Hertfordshire, the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 22 and junction 21A has a crash with 2 lanes closed. In Thurrock, the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 1A and junction 31 has lane closures due to a broken down vehicle. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway have major disruption with reduced services between London Euston and Watford Junction. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 3:38. Me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, Al-Qaeda, of course, the terrorist organisation behind the 9/11 atrocities, is said now to have 50 times more recruits than it had at the time of that devastating Twin Tower attacks. And that's according to fresh data from the United Nations. Now, in September 2001, the terrorist group had an estimated 500 terrorists, but it's now believed to have ballooned to around 25,000 across the globe. Here's the question. Should we be concerned here in the United Kingdom with de facto open borders? Could this be coming to our shores anytime soon? Well, let's now speak with the director of the Afghan Human Rights Foundation, Mohammed Asif. Mohammed, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. In the first instance, how concerned are you that Al-Qaeda is seemingly ballooning its numbers to the point where it's becoming a serious threat again?
I mean, no doubt Al-Qaeda is a threat, that's no doubt, but we have to, go back to the history that who created Al-Qaeda. In my country, Afghanistan, when we were fighting the Soviet Union, and I remember the National Security Advisor to the then American President Ronald Reagan, a guy called Brzezinski. He was giving an advice, and he said in his interview, to deceive the Afghan people to fight against the Russian occupation, we need to recruit some extremists and bring them to Afghanistan to fight the USSR in Afghanistan. And that's how Al-Qaeda was founded. And it was founded in Afghanistan by the United States, by Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and some other Western countries. And we have to be concerned. It's not only Al-Qaeda around the world, And we know that, whenever there is an invasion of a foreign country or foreign countries, similar group reappear or appear. I still remember 9/11, and my, thoughts and prayers are with the families and all the victims. But as I said, Al-Qaeda is a dangerous organization, and their leader was recently killed, or the deputy leader after bin Laden, al-Zawahiri in Afghanistan.
So, Mohammed Azif, you're claiming Al-Qaeda was the fault of the Americans?
Definitely in Afghanistan, yes, because I remember the then security advisor. I don't get me wrong. Al-Qaeda is a brutal organization which goes out and kill innocent people, and we have to be, awakened, and we have to, really take measures, to stop similar attacks. What happened in 9/11 or the 7/7 in the UK, or Madrid bombing, or in Belgium and other parts of the world. But Al-Qaeda was definitely founded. The Islamic State of Afghanistan, Islamic State or Daesh was founded by Obama.
Mohammed, you don't think that the poisonous cancer of Al-Qaeda could be caused, I don't know, by Islamic hatred, Islamism, jihad, the desire to wipe out America? Look at 9/11. How grotesque is it to lay the blame for that at the feet of America?
It is very grotesque. And, as I said in my introduction, it's a dangerous disease, and we have to fight, extremism. But, you have to look at the root causes. The root causes were because whenever the Western intervention in Afghanistan or Iraq, extremist organizations were funded by the West and some Middle Eastern countries, and that's a disease.
OK, so if Al-Qaeda is now 50 times bigger than it was at the time of 9/11, are you still going to blame America for that? Or perhaps it's something else. Perhaps it's the poisonous rise of Islamism.
That is not it. You see, the problem with the Western media is you link the religion with fundamentalism. You don't
think it's linked?
No, because I'm a Muslim. Al-Qaeda doesn't speak for me. It doesn't speak for my children. It doesn't speak for my country people in Afghanistan or many Muslim countries. Al-Qaeda is a cancer. It has to be stopped. It does not matter how much it takes. We have to, fight to remove all this brutal individual and organization. But if we look at the history, I'm only telling you the history. Whenever we need Al-Qaeda extremist groups, we fund them, we finance them, we give them weapons, we give them plenty of money, and we send them to, Muslim countries mostly. And then once the job is done, we wash our hands and we leave them there. And this is how Al-Qaeda is spread through different countries.
OK, one final point, Mohammed Azif, if I could. We have a lot of Afghans turning up in Britain. We seem to have a lot of criminality happening. We've had data on this show. For example, Afghanis 14 times more likely to be sex offenders in the United Kingdom as opposed to the indigenous British population. Should we be concerned here in Britain about Al-Qaeda operatives from Afghanistan coming to our shores? We don't know who they are if they're throwing their passports in the channel.
Fortunately, nobody throw away their passport. And I tell you this, every time we have these debates, people are blaming the Afghans. We are 70,000 Afghans in the UK, probably, claiming asylum or migrants or refugees, whatever you call them. A tiny minority, very tiny, not even 100 out of 70,000 are committing crimes. And I'm not, supporting, and they have to be stopped and they have to be punished, whatever crimes they have committed. And the statistics you're quoting is just untrue. And the other thing I tell you, I remember when we were fighting the Soviet Union, Al-Qaeda fighters were trained in the West. They were trained in the Middle East. They were funded by CIA. If you don't trust me, you just go do simple research and you will see what the West did in Afghanistan when we were fighting the Cold War or fighting.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true, of course, to point out that the West has funded bad guys in conflicts of war because they thought they were their bad guys. I get that. But that's the past. I'm talking about the here and the now, the today. The fact that Al-Qaeda is 50 times bigger than it was at the height of that grotesque terrorist atrocity, the likes of which we should never, ever forget. Surely is a cause for great concern. And my point is, and I'm very, very delighted, actually, Mohammed Asif, you're calling out the grotesque behaviour of a few bad apples, Afghanis on these shores. And the vast majority of people of any nationality aren't bad people, but we should be concerned. And I want to ask you again, it's not enough, I think, to just blame America, to blame imperialism, to blame wars we started. What about the poisonous ideology? And we have to look at Islamism that's driving a lot of this.
Yeah, again, you're linking Islam to, bad individuals and, barbaric.
You don't think jihad is a factor?
No, jihad, you're taking literally the wrong meaning. Jihad means, to struggle against yourself, It
also means to blow people up in skyscrapers. It also means to set off suicide bombs. It also means to commit atrocities on British soil with knives.
That's not in my religion. I can quote you every single verse of the Quran. That's not in the Quran to go out and blow innocent citizens. My religion says that if you killed one innocent human beings, that means you have killed the entire humanity. Anyone who commits, whether they're Al-Qaeda, whether they're state sponsoring terrorism, whether they're, anyone from any background, and it should be stopped. And because I live in this country and I love this country, and I want to do whatever I can do for this country to protect my family and the people in this country, and it has to be stopped. It's a disease, and the ideology itself is a disease. But sadly, the ideology was, founded by the West, especially America.
Mohammed Asif, we part friends. I thank you for saying that. I really do thank you for saying that. We have to have these discussions to try and thrash this out in real time. A lot of people don't understand the deeper picture, but I want to thank you for your humanity.
Thank you.
The Director of the Afghan Human Rights Foundation, Mohammed Asif. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
OK, moving on. Coming up next, we'll be crossing to Scotland to speak with whisky experts about the drop of the Highland Mist. Meanwhile, look at that. Meanwhile, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for the top European destinations. Bottoms up.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Further very heavy rain and strong winds in Spain and Portugal, likely to cause more flooding problems here throughout the weekend. Another spell of very heavy rain, especially across the south of Spain, where river levels are already running exceptionally high. There'll be some showers heading into Italy, also looking a little drier for Greece on Saturday with some sunny spells here, and we'll continue to see some sunshine across the Canaries through the weekend and into the early part of next week, with temperatures rising a little bit here too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It does feel like a bit of a bonus Olympics, I didn't necessarily believe I'd be still competing at 39, but obviously still able to do it. So looking forward to going into my last games, my fifth one, and give it my all once more for our nation.
What is it feels it more than anything else? I mean, imagine when I watch slalom, I'm thinking of the knees. Is that the thing? Because especially being the age or as young as you are, is that the thing that usually goes? Because everything looks pretty good at the moment, Dave.
No, I think it's more my hairline than anything. The stress
is it the worry? Is that what it is?
On the old scalp. No, I'm very fortunate that my body's really good. Sit here with no pain, so that's why I can still do it. That's why I can still train hard. And yeah, the mental side of it's tough, being away from the family, but otherwise, all good.
It's a real, I would imagine, this is as someone who's dabbled in ski. I love watching ski. Me and Eamon have spoken about it, from watching Ski Sunday with David Vine back in the day, and I remember Ingemar Stenmark, etc., doing the slalom. It's a very technical event, I would imagine. It's not like the downhill where you just fly down. It's both. You've got to cover both. So the adrenaline, I guess, can help, but being technical, you've got to be thinking the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what people sometimes don't understand is we don't get to practice the course before. We have half an hour to inspect. No, we have half an hour to inspect 75 gates.
We have to memorise all the terrain, all the different obstacles along the way, and then we have to race it full gas from the first time we push out the gate. So it's very mentally demanding, and I call it the intensity of focus that has to be absolutely on point.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Got some breaking news to bring you now, and it's this. The Metropolitan Police are carrying out searches related to Lord Mandelson's relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, and the Deputy Assistant Commissioner Hayley Stewart of the Metropolitan Police has said this: I can confirm that officers from the Met's Central Specialist Crime Team are in the process of carrying out search warrants at 2 addresses, one in the Wiltshire area and the another in the Camden area of London. The searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man. He has not been arrested, and inquiries are ongoing. A huge development there in the Mandelson investigation. We'll have more of that at the top of the next hour, but let's move swiftly onwards because International Scottish Whisky Day is right around the corner, and what better way to celebrate than champion the industry? And GB News has been looking at the challenges facing the whisky industry, such as supply chain issues and business rates. Well, joining us live now from the Glen Turret distiller is GB News' Scotland reporter Tony Maguire. Tony, you normally cling onto a cliff in a storm, but today you've got the dream gig. Over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Martin. I think all those times out in the storms, this is me finally getting some payback now. And what a day it's been. It's hard to believe this is the last stop on our whisky adventure. And what better way to finish things up than talking about the relationship between whisky and food. And to do that, I'm at the one and only Glen Turret Lalique restaurant, and I'm joined here by Executive Chef Mark Donald and also Claude Millet, who is the restaurant manager here. Now, Claude, you're going to whip us up something tasty for the end of the day. So while you do that, over to you, Mark. This is a 2-star Michelin restaurant. You share a wall with the distillery. There must be some great symbiosis between the food and the spirit here.
Yeah. I think when we were approached to do something like this, there was a bit of a challenge. It's never really been done before. There was no peers to fall on and ask about matching food with whisky or interpreting it into food so much. But we spent a lot of time with the whisky makers, the stillmen, and learning their processes and techniques, and almost recalibrating our cooking a bit and learning a bit more about what they're doing and utilising that within our menu.
And of course, one of the things that whisky producers are known for is locally sourcing their water, and of course Scottish grain being used in whisky. And you know, does that same feeling translate through to your kitchen as well?
Of course. I think provenance plays a huge part, especially in local gastronomy. And with the whisky, obviously we do share the same water for all the cooking. We share the same malted barley for the bread that we serve on our tasting menu. But
sorry, we've got a wee bit of breaking news now, so we're going to hand back. Hopefully Martin will join us shortly again.
Thank you, gentlemen. We just caught you short in your prime there, but we do have to get back to that breaking news, significant breaking news. Chris Hope, you come in with the latest. The Metropolitan Police are conducting, we hear, 2 separate searches in relation to the Mandelson scandal at 2 properties, one in Camden in London and one in Wiltshire.
That's right. There's a statement coming here from the Met Police, Martin. If I can quickly read it to you very briefly, it says this from Deputy Assistant Commissioner Hayley Stewart. She says this: I can confirm that officers from the Met's Central Specialist Crimes team are in the process of carrying out search warrants at 2 addresses, one in the Wiltshire area and the other in the Camden area in North London, of course. The searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man, that's we know as Peter Mandelson. He has not been arrested and inquiries are ongoing. So the net is tightening on this. They are now searching, obviously, for further evidence. We know the Cabinet Office, the government is cooperating with the police. There have been conversations yesterday and today between the police and the government about what can be released. The government right now is going through the high tens of thousands of documents, working out what they can release regarding the vetting of Peter Mandelson. That's happening, and also this inquiry really is into the anything released by Peter Mandelson towards Jeffrey Epstein, disclosed by the DOJ in America.
And it's important to point out there's been no arrests made, let alone any charges made.
And Peter Mandelson denies wrongdoing and says he was open.
But of course, as well as sifting through, Chris Hope, that extensive, huge amounts of Epstein historical information, they're now on the search for anything that could tie all this together, because, of course, huge question marks around the slipping of privy information to Jeffrey Epstein about the Euro bailout, and there's been a huge amount of speculation about how that could have been used, how much money could have been made, if Putin got hold of it, Donald Tusk for the Polish Premier has got involved. So they're now searching for evidence that could tie it all together.
That's right. So that man on screen there, Peter Mandelson and Sir Keir Starmer, there are two things happening. The guy on the left there, Keir Starmer, is under some heat for appointing Peter Mandelson. We're going to get evidence of what he knew when about the Prime Minister. That's what the Cabinet Office is looking at. Separate to that, the police are looking at any disclosures made by Mandelson to Jeffrey Epstein, which were misconduct in public office, information about briefings to the Prime Minister, for example, mooting the sell-off of land and other property to help the UK economy, the Euro bailout, and also when Gordon Brown was leaving office. Those things were apparently, according to the files, slipped to Epstein earlier. What the police will say is, does that amount to misconduct in public office? And clearly they're looking at further information by going to his homes. I mean, absolutely embarrassment and absolute, bringing down a senior figure of the past 30 years in Labour politics, to have his homes being searched by the cops, shows how far he's fallen.
It's worth pointing out that earlier this week, of course, Gordon Brown contacted the Metropolitan Police himself, urging them to get involved. We've seen these kind of investigations, it's not a raid, it's a search, it's a routine search. Let's keep calm on this. But routinely they'll be taking things like computers, hard drives, electronic devices, any paperwork pertaining a clean sweep of properties. Then that's placed in police evidence position. Then it'll be meticulously combed through, looking for any connection to any of these transactions. This is serious. This is a serious advancement, and it seriously places another microscope over the Prime Minister's judgment to get this guy involved in his team. It's a serious
100%. A year ago, I was in the US Embassy with the Prime Minister when he called him Peter. I was with the PM yesterday when he called him Mandelson. He spat the word out there. He couldn't even bear to say the word Mandelson. It shows how far they've come. A lot here resting on the Prime Minister. He said sorry 5 times, apologised 3 times for appointing him, but will he actually accept that he shouldn't have appointed him in the first place? Enough information was out there already not to do it. He did it, and now, frankly, it's exploding under him.
Because the official combing through of the governmental evidence, the Epstein files, and in particular, what did Sir Keir Starmer know? What was the vetting process? How deep a dive did that go into? All of the above. And therefore, how did Sir Keir Starmer make his decision to hire Peter Mandelson as his US ambassador? That's going on separately to this. This is a police investigation to try and see if those two worlds connect. And if they do, and this is not conjecture, this is how investigations happen. If evidence shows up, and I think, again, just to reiterate, for me, the huge questions are, how was that privileged financial information? If you give a billionaire like Epstein, with lots and lots of billionaire friends, crucial market-sensitive information that can help you to make a severe amount of money, the collapse of the Greek economy. I mean, billions, currencies collapsing. Greece still hasn't recovered. Greece has still got the highest youth unemployment in all of the European Union. What was the fingerprint? Who is involved? Where's that money gone? Were any messages shared betwixt Mandelson and anybody else? That's what they're going to look for now.
They really will. And it was the end of days of the Labour government. By his own account, it was a difficult campaign. You know, why was Peter Mandelson sending information which could have made money for Jeffrey Epstein? Of course, he was linked to JP Morgan at the time. I mean, it's very, very difficult, this. And there's a twin... It will come together, but at the moment, this is a historic investigation into things that happened 15 or 16 years ago, separate to the appointment of him as ambassador. But both issues are bearing heavily on the PM this weekend. The Guardian saying he'll be examining his conscience as he sits down for a cup of tea with the family this weekend. MPs, of course, upset, cross about apparent lack of judgment by the Prime Minister.
There'll be a lot of people now from within the Parliamentary Labour Party looking at this through their fingers, like a car crash. And perhaps, Chris, a car crash that could have been avoided. And again, this now comes back to a whole separate strand of this conversation, apart from the police investigation, apart from the internal combing through of the Epstein information. It's now the Prime Minister's judgment, also on trial by his own party, by his own parliamentarians, by the British public. Why, in the name of God, why would you invite Peter Mandelson to be the US ambassador when there was so much in the public arena about him? It was known. It's out there. It's on the internet. Now, the Financial Times asked the Prime Minister himself in person about the fact that Mandelson had stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's apartment when he was in jail for sex crimes. That was out there. So all of this now, this police raid, is just intensifying.
Well,
the
these
scrutiny of the Prime Minister.
Well, we're getting pictures shortly, I think, of the police at one of the properties. They'll be on tomorrow's front pages of the newspapers. These MPs were looking through their fingers at the Sunday papers. One of the Sunday papers found in the Jeffrey Epstein files. That could be very awkward. Again, the Guardian particularly is saying that he'll be grappling with his conscience this weekend, the Prime Minister, about what he does next. He must be regretting why he did it. Well, at the time, it felt like a risk worth taking to deal with Donald Trump. Mandelson was a former EU Trade Commissioner. The trade deal hadn't been agreed by then. He's used to dealing, Mandelson, with high-profile business figures. That also suited the Mandelson CV. So you can see why he did it. The other alternative was George Osborne, who apparently Keir Starmer preferred, but we're told, reports, that Morgan McSweeney supported Peter Mandelson for that job. And before that, well, Sue Gray was looking at David Miliband, for example, and others too. So, you know, they relied on Mandelson, the risk worth taking to sort out the special relationship, get that trade deal with Trump, and frankly, it's blown up in their faces.
And then there are huge questions asked about, was it Morgan McSweeney who encouraged the Prime Minister? This is what would come out in the parliamentary side of that investigation. But Nigel Farage earlier this week reported the former Lord Mandelson, now Mr Mandelson, to the European Union's internal special investigations squad because he was a trade commissioner in Brussels for 4 years. What happened then? And this raid now could go back into that period. The tendrils of this are astonishing.
Well, the PM said in PMQs on Wednesday, the police must go wherever it takes them, including a claim by Ed Davey that the Russians were benefiting, possibly through Jeffrey Epstein. Were they benefiting from the information? I mean, no question that Peter Mandelson may not have known that and doesn't know anything about any Russian connection. That's an Epstein connection going forward to Russians. But, you know, the PM simply said the police must go where they go. And that is a worry for the PM.
It's turning into an utter car crash. It sincerely is. Just to repeat, thank you, Chris Hope. Just to repeat this breaking news to you, if you're joining us now, it's just shortly after 4 p.m. on this Friday afternoon. The breaking news is this. The Metropolitan Police are carrying out searches related to Lord Mandelson's relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. The Deputy Assistant Commissioner Hayley Stewart of the Metropolitan Police has told us this. I can confirm that officers from the Met's Central Specialist Crime Team are currently in the process of carrying out search warrants at 2 addresses, one in the Wiltshire area and another in the Camden area of London. The searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man. He's not been arrested and inquiries are still ongoing. Clearly, those properties belong to Peter Mandelson, and that 72-year-old man is Peter Mandelson, and the scandal around Mandelson and the Prime Minister just went up a notch. Let's get my next guest in now. I'm speaking with the head of policy at Reform UK. It is Zia Youssef. Zia, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. This calamity simply gets worse and worse by the hour.
Yeah, and absolutely no sympathy whatsoever. You know, you're hearing a lot about Keir Starmer apparently, grappling with his conscience. You're hearing that from particularly the left-wing press. What conscience? Is that the same conscience Keir Starmer grappled with when he pursued and hounded brave British veterans through the court system, driving one of them in particular to try to kill themselves 3 times? Remember, he was confronted in a hearing, in a committee hearing, when he was told that a farmer had committed suicide and others were considering doing so as a result of his appalling tax raid on them. You saw his response. I thought it was a pretty cold-blooded and awful response. And so I don't think there's much grappling to be done with here. Keir Starmer is only Prime Minister because the Tory vote collapsed at the last general election, because the British public was sick and tired of corruption, betrayal and sleaze. And in fact, Starmer won fewer votes than Corbyn did in both times Corbyn ran. And what have we seen since Starmer became Prime Minister? It's just been one scandal after another. And what's really telling is that Starmer admitted this week, that he knew that Mandelson had continued his close friendship with Epstein, even after Epstein had become a convicted paedophile. I cannot understand anyone watching this program who's ever hired anybody or making a recommendation for hiring somebody. Why on earth would you give anyone a job who has done such a thing, let alone someone giving someone the job of US ambassador, one of only a couple of diplomatic appointments, arguably the most glamorous and prestigious job in politics. So this idea that now he's angry, I think is absolutely outrageous. And by the way, imagine how angry British people are. Most polls now put Labour Party and Keir Starmer at around 16%. How can this country continue to stagger along under this heavy weight of the fact that we have a walloping Labour majority in the House of Commons, that for a party that commands the support of just 16% of the electorate? It's unsustainable. Keir Starmer needs to go, and whoever that replaces him must do the honourable thing and call for a general election.
Well, Zia Youssef, on the politics of that now, we have the Labour Party turning into some kind of circular firing squad. Now, we have Harriet Harman, Baroness Harman, of course, former Deputy Prime Minister, calling Keir Starmer weak and naive. Graham Stringer, the veteran parliamentarian for the Labour Party, in this studio yesterday admitting that Sir Keir Starmer is finished. Liam Byrne says Sir Keir Starmer needs a miracle now. And all the same while, Zia Youssef, we have the socialist wagons circling around Downing Street, Angela Rayner at the helm, Wes Streeting, Andy Burnham on manoeuvres. We have a political calamity on our hands here.
That's to put it mildly. Look, it's a matter now of when, not if, Keir Starmer is replaced. Does the next Labour leader want to take the catastrophe that is looming in the May elections on their plate or not? You know, obviously Angela Rayner's wrapped up with all sorts of HMRC stuff. Andy Burnham, poor Andy Burnham, has been locked out by party apparatus. Wes Streeting, I mean, did you see the footage of Wes Streeting in the interviews he gave yesterday? He looked gaunt because I would suspect that the documents that are now going to come out, and this is obviously the next ugly leg of this story, with all of the correspondence, my guess will be that there will be things in there that Wes Streeting that will not present Wes Streeting in the best light. But I want to go back to the original point. It is critical, actually, that when Keir Starmer is replaced, whoever replaces them does the honourable thing and calls for a general election, not least because whoever replaces Keir Starmer will be farther to the left than even Keir Starmer. It's going to be someone that says things like, who cares what the bond market thinks? Who cares about what the bond markets think when they're the ones actually lending Britain money to keep the lights on? Unfortunately, if you're £3 trillion in debt, you do actually need to care about what people lending that money to you are thinking. And so I think we're going to lurch towards a really serious potential economic crisis and funding crisis for the country. I say that with no joy whatsoever. You know, as a patriot, that's the last thing that I want. I know there's so many people struggling in this country, but there is absolutely no mandate for someone to the left of Keir Starmer to come in and take the helm, when there isn't even a mandate for Keir Starmer himself. Whoever replaces Starmer must call a general election.
But Zia Yusuf, we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit. I mean, I don't think he's going to go anywhere soon, Keir Starmer. He certainly made that clear in that speech in Hastings yesterday. And isn't it time that we gave him a bit more slack? I mean, when he appointed Peter Mandelson, on face value, he knew there were issues there with Epstein, but equally, he felt you needed a different candidate for that job to take on the chaotic nature of a Trump presidency. I mean, he knew about trade in the EU. He knew about rich business people having in his private life with his own company and the like. It was a risk worth taking. Yes, it's been found out in the Epstein files, and the law and everything else will take its course, but surely you had to think differently back when he was appointed.
Well, this doesn't happen in isolation, does it, Chris? Keir Starmer's entire offering to the electorate was simply, I'm not going to be corrupt and sleazy like the Tories. And then what have we seen since? Remember, it was Lord Alley who was given, one of Labour's biggest donors, given a number 10 Downing Street pass. Then they appointed Ian Caulfield and gave him a cushy job in the Treasury without telling anyone he was a Labour donor. And the things that we've discovered with regards, again, to Mandelson, and remember, everyone needs to remember this, the things that are now in the public domain, I'm guessing are still the tip of the iceberg. You know, we haven't seen WhatsApps, we haven't seen SMS messages, Lord knows what they were saying to each other on the phone. I mean, this is a man who, on the day Jeffrey Epstein was released from prison for sex offences against minors, sent him an email saying, and I quote, Liberation Day. It is disgusting on a totally different level. And remember, this was Starmer's only offering to the electorate that this sort of thing would not happen. And there's been endless other scandals, Sue Gray. I mean, we could go on and on. We haven't got the time, Chris. So, no, I'm afraid there's absolutely no sympathy for Starmer whatsoever. Let's not forget, Starmer has also managed to find, in amongst all these scandals, he has been productive enough to find the time to cancel elections for millions of people, drive farmers to suicide, and withdraw the right to jury trials. So, by the way, which he did not have an electoral mandate for. None of those things were in Labour's manifesto. So no, Chris, I'm afraid, with the best will in the world, there's absolutely no sympathy for me from Starmer, and not really from the British people either, given the latest polling put him at 16%. Let's see what that polling shows next week.
OK, Zia Yusuf, just to read a message out here, Lord Mandelson has previously denied wrongdoing related to Jeffrey Epstein, saying, I was never culpable or complicit in his crimes, and like everyone else, I learned the actual truth about him after his death. He also said he relied on assurances of his innocence that turned out later to be horrendously false. Zia Yusuf, I want to get back to the political drama here. There are some Starmer loyalists today. They seem convinced that this can be dealt with by getting rid of Morgan McSweeney. There's a lot of talk that it was Morgan McSweeney who was more influential in making the appointment of Lord Mandelson, the former Lord Mandelson, than Keir Starmer. This was outsourced, if you like, and in that sense, the forensic Keir Starmer didn't fully turn his attention to that. Will it be enough from your point of view if Morgan Sweeney bites the bullet?
Of course not. Look, the only reason Labour is so focused on Morgan McSweeney is because he is the practitioner of the dark arts who serves at the behest of Keir Starmer. Again, we shouldn't forget, this is all connected. So Morgan McSweeney was Peter Mandelson's protege, right? Morgan McSweeney was Peter Mandel's protege. And by the way, Peter Mandelson's nickname has long been, for as long as I can remember, been the Prince of Darkness, by the way, which makes the whole thing even more ridiculous. The idea that Starmer didn't know this was not a man to make ambassador. So the reason why all the Labour MPs are baying now to get Morgan McSweeney fired, as they have in numerous times before, is once McSweeney goes, a bit like Dominic Cummings, I think, for Boris Johnson, he's left extremely isolated, and somebody who I think does a lot of the dirty work in politics that Starmer's relied upon to even get him this far, by the way. And by the way, was basically installed. I mean, look, Keir Starmer is basically an installation into number 10 Downing Street by Morgan McSweeney and Labour together. So that's why they're going for him. It is a matter of time before he goes, and once he goes, again, it's just a matter of time, whether it's now, whether it's May. As Nigel said, look, I agree with Nigel from a reforms perspective. We'd probably prefer him to stay until May. But look, ultimately, it is crystal clear. Starmer, I don't think Starmer will be Prime Minister by next year. The betting markets already suggest that's the case. But I want to emphasise again, there is no mandate for whomever comes after Starmer from the electorate. Labour is polling at an astonishingly low level for an incumbent government so soon, and whoever that replacement is must call a general.
Zia Youssef, could I also ask you about the fact that Nigel Farage today, the Reform UK leader, has written to the investigations unit, the police, if you like, at the European Union, because, of course, Peter Mandelson was a trade ambassador, a commissioner over there for 4 years. And I think now the investigation needs to go much wider than just what happened between him and Jeffrey Epstein, and never mind the privileged information that could have made billions or millions of pounds, dollars, whatever, for anybody with access to information before the poker cards were laid of that Euro bailout. There's that. But also, this would go back to Lord Mandelson's time in Brussels.
Exactly. And that's why, you know, that statement from Peter Mandelson, which I appreciate, you're obliged to read out as a broadcaster, but you know, nobody's arguing that Peter Mandelson engaged in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. What people are arguing, and this is in the public domain, there is prima facie evidence in the extreme here, that Peter Mandelson gave Jeffrey Epstein privileged information about the €500 billion bailout and the resignation of Gordon Brown, just to name a few things, by the way. There's also the lobbying around bankers' bonuses, any number of things given to a man who obviously ran large amounts of money for clients as well and traded in global markets. That information could have made Epstein enormous amounts of money. My guess is it probably did. So that is why the police are already involved, and why Nigel's absolutely right to call for that investigation from the EU as well. And if you actually read, I mean, people are busy, right? People watching this show, they don't have the time. But I've spent a decent amount of time looking through the horrors of these emails on the Justice Department's website. There are so many emails where Mandelson is openly trying to find any possible way to monetize his preferred access at the heart of the British government. And, you know, what Mandelson also represents is everything that is wrong with the British establishment. It's why trust in politics, forget about Keir Starmer, trust in politicians is so low. It's why I have disdain myself for the political establishment. They're not all as bad as Mandelson, but there's a lot who I think are of varying degrees close to him. But the bottom line is, if you look at the prima facie evidence, I personally think Mandelson is going to go to jail. But again, the buck stops with the executive. Keir Starmer had more than enough information to have not made him US ambassador, and Starmer must go.
Zia Youssef, thank you very much for joining us on this dramatic day. Again, is there ever a quiet day in British politics? Astonishing stuff. Zia Youssef, thank you for your time this afternoon. I sincerely appreciate it. Let's go back to the studio now for a quick bit of reaction. Chris Hope, you're firing off emails there. You try and get responses from the people relevant out there. What's happening?
Well, nothing yet. I've approached Peter Mandelson for comment, of course. We get to hear from him. We'll try, as soon as we get comment from him, we will bring it to you straight away. This is significant. This shows that the Cabinet Office is cooperating with the police. They are trying to see what can you use, what can you take from the government's emails or government's information that can help your inquiry. They want this to move forward. It is at pace moving forward. It is a dramatic moment here to have the homes of a former cabinet minister to be searched by police. This is an escalation of this, but it doesn't take away the political pressure from the Prime Minister, with a Guardian saying he's searching his conscience this weekend. MPs too looking through their fingers at tomorrow's front pages and Sunday's front pages too.
Thank you, Chris. And as we wait for those statements to come in, of course, we'll get them to you, GB News viewers and listeners, as that happens. But I'm delighted now to be joined in the studio in Westminster by the former John Wedger. He's an ex-Metropolitan Police officer. John, welcome to the show. You were due to come in and talk about the fact that Keir Starmer apologised effusively to the victims of the Jeffrey Epstein's sex case, but he hasn't apologised to those who were subjected to the Pakistani rape gangs. That's kind of now been overtaken by events. Instead, I want to ask you, as a former Met Police copper, during these kind of investigations, raids, call them what you want, what happens?
Well, they raided a house, from what I can see from the breaking news. So a warrant or two warrants have had to have been applied for. So that would have to be authorised by an officer, no junior than a detective inspector. Then that information will have to be presented before a magistrate. A magistrate will then have to sign that warrant off based on the information provided, providing it is all there and it's proportionate and it ticks all the boxes. Then certain teams will then be allocated to go and, with force if necessary, search these premises.
And you're looking for hard drives, computers, phones, paperwork, the whole lot?
Well, it depends what information is on the warrant. So it'd have to be relevant to the offence. So I don't know what offence they've actually gone under, what bit of statute law there is, but I would surmise, based on my experience, that it would be data storage devices, and that would cover them.
OK, John Wedge, just going to quickly interrupt. We've got 2 bits of breaking news first. Before I come to you, Chris, we have got some pictures now, fresh pictures coming in. This is of that raid earlier on today. We believe this is the London property. Is that correct? This is the North London property. This is the Camden property, that's correct. This is the Camden property belonging to a 72-year-old man who clearly is Peter Mandelson. That's the first picture there of that raid. Chris Hope, you got a line for us?
Yes, so we've got witnesses outside the 2 properties now reporting in. So 2 people believed to be police officers have left the House of Lords of Lord Mandelson to collect items from their car. They collected a blue box and a large bag before re-entering the property near Regent's Park in central London. Another person, thought to be a police officer too, has arrived at the home in central London. One of them appears to be wearing a small body camera. They've knocked on the door and entered the house. So what would they be looking for right now, John Wedger? They've gone in there with body cameras, they've got a blue box and a large bag. What are they looking for?
They'll be looking for evidence to corroborate the allegation. But also, if there is evidence in relation to other crimes, they have the power to seize that as well. Usually, what you look for is when you do start searching, other things become apparent, especially when you're looking at data storage devices. Who knows what's on them hard drives, you know? We're yet to find out. That'll have to be forensically analysed. But he will have to account for the articles seized, whether that's done by appointment or under an arrest scenario. We're yet to find out.
Yeah, and of course, it's not speculative. This is what happens routinely on these types of investigations. Just to make clear, we don't know what's being seized at Peter Mandelson's properties. We just sort of, this is what happens at this point in these investigations typically. And it's important to point out that no arrest has been made, no charges, let alone have been made yet. This is the initial evidence gathering stage that just typically always happens in these circumstances, John.
That's right. That's exactly right. That is, it's not a fishing expedition. There's obviously been some intelligence that has to be backed up. There's an authorised officer at the police station has agreed there's enough, and then a magistrate has said the same. So it's gone through a due process, and ultimately a magistrate has agreed there is enough to go in there with force if necessary and look for the articles.
And then a meticulous combing through of all of that evidence goes, because hard drives will contain emails and the whole chain. It's a hugely expansive piece of investigation work, particularly if it's going back over many years.
Yeah, and these things can take hours and sometimes days. So that area now will be secure, and they've got all the time to crack on and do a diligent search, I would have thought, because they know that there is supervision on them, there is the pressure on them.
John Wedger, is this investigation moving at a different pace than you might expect? Obviously, there's pressure from number 10 to get on with it. They've been talking to the police about what they can release, and this investigation only started, didn't it, in the past 7 days. Are you surprised to see this search so quickly?
Very much so, and I was on here the other week asking to account for my opinion on something, and I said we should not be using civil remedies for criminal problems. And it looks like now they are using the right process. There's criminal allegations, no more inquiries. The police, we don't have to pay for lawyers and barristers at £450 an hour. The police are there. We paid for them. Let them do their job. This is criminal. It needs a criminal remedy, not a civilian one, a civil one. And this is exactly what's happened. And I'm very surprised, but really, this is what our process is. This is how it works in this country, and they should be doing it.
OK, if you're joining us at 4:20 on this Friday afternoon, a huge breaking news story. Pictures on your screen, the first pictures, we believe, there of 2 police officers, we understand, entering a property in North London, the Camden area of London, belonging to a 72-year-old man we believe to be Peter Mandelson. A second property has also been raided in the Wiltshire area. We know Peter Mandelson has a property in Wiltshire because the media have been specking it out. People have been trying to doorstep Peter Mandelson for days. We don't know where he is. And just to repeat, he's denied all allegations. No arrests have been made. No charges have been made. This is an initial evidence-gathering phase of what now is clearly going towards a criminal investigation, not an internal political investigation. Just to be absolutely clear on that, John Wedger. When the police get involved like this is quite separate to the internal combing through of the Epstein information. This is a matter of law, a police matter, a criminal matter.
Yep. And if this is malfeasance in a public office, then that is a serious offence contrary to common law, and it carries a hefty sentence with it. So,
and again, without speculating on this particular case, typically, what kind of tariff are we talking? What kind of brackets are we talking?
Well, it could go into double figures, and it sends out a positive message that no one is beyond the law, and that's been lacking up until now, and I really welcome it.
I think you raise a key point, because there has been a feeling for perhaps a long time in a lot of countries around the world that certain political class, the elites, you might say, seem to be above the law. And actually, this is the British police doing their job, doing what they do best, with equity.
What they're paid to do, that's right, and it is all about equity. It is.
And it's worth pointing out. I mean, of course, Lord Mandelson denies all wrongdoing, but you haven't seen this kind of activity in America.
No.
In the UK, the establishment is taking it seriously. There's been a humbling of the former Prince Andrew. There's a humbling now of Lord Mandelson, two senior figures in politics and clearly the royal family. You don't see the same in the States, and that's worth noting. Yeah.
Just to add a quick statement from the Metropolitan Police, if you're joining us now, it's 4 this Friday afternoon. The Met have said this in a statement. I can confirm that officers from the Met's Central Specialist Crime Team are in the process of carrying out search warrants at 2 addresses, one in the Wiltshire area and another in the Camden area. And they go on to add, this is Hayley Stewart, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner at the Metropolitan Police, continues thus. The searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences, including a 72-year-old man. He has not been arrested and inquiries are ongoing. Chris Hope, clearly that 72-year-old man is that man on our screens. Peter Mandelson, the 2 properties, first pictures there. We understand from the London property, the Camden property, of 2 police officers entering inside. Chris Hope, you had an eyewitness account telling us what they saw at that address. To repeat that for those tuning in, Chris.
Yes, indeed. So a man has now left Lord Mandelson's house and got into a car. We're told he wouldn't comment to reporters, including on anything happening inside the property. To go back to what we found out a few moments ago, that 2 people, believed to be police, have left the home of Lord Mandelson to get items from their car. They include a blue box and large bag, Martin. They re-entered the property near Regent's Park in Camden, central London. Another person thought to be the officer has arrived at the house. So it's an organised operation. We don't know if Lord Mandelson was, we assume he was done with his permission. They're looking for information that might support the historic investigation over what Lord Mandelson may have told Jeffrey Epstein, the late convicted paedophile and financier, about what was happening in the government, the last Labour government, in the back end of the noughties. And that's what they're looking at. It's separate to the whole political situation with the vetting of Lord Mandelson, of course, which we'll see play out separately. But the 2 things happening at the same time, this is very, very serious, though, and absolute humbling for one of the most senior Labour figures of the past 30 years, having 2 homes being searched by police. I should say it happens that Lord Mandelson features in tomorrow's Times newspaper, cooking food and being at home. So, ironically, you'll see images of the inside Lord Mandelson's home, we think, in the Times newspaper tomorrow.
You probably think they might keep that, you might think they'd drop that feature as a matter of days. Actually, an insight into Lord Mandelson's kitchen and front room, the precise property that's been raided by the police now, might have an special public interest. Chris, you got something else?
I've got a line now from the Conservatives. It's quite short. I'll read it now. The Tories tell us in the past few moments that no stone should be left unturned in the investigation into Peter Mandelson. Searching his properties is exactly the right course of action, the Tories say, but all of it just demonstrates yet again the appalling judgment of the Prime Minister and his team in choosing to appoint Mandelson as our ambassador to Washington. There was more than enough evidence that he should not be brought back into public life, and Starmer did it anyway. It's time the Prime Minister took real responsibility for this catastrophic mistake. So the Tories are trying to push back pressure on the PM, who this weekend is examining his conscience, according to the Guardian newspaper.
It's absolutely worth pointing out, Chris Hope, that's, yesterday Keir Starmer in Hastings repeatedly said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. We have police at the door of the man he appointed as US ambassador, and to continue that metaphor along, it's brought great shame to the door of the Labour Party. This is a terrible look. The optics are cataclysmically bad, Chris Hope, and people will now start to say all of this could have been avoided. If Peter Mandelson hadn't been appointed, these police raids could have happened in isolation of Keir Starmer, in isolation of the Labour Party, and so many people will be saying, why on earth was Mandelson hired in the first place, particularly going back in time where it's now apparent that there was evidence put to Keir Starmer in the form of a report that he had stayed at the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein's apartment after he was in jail. At the time he was in jail, this was known to the Prime Minister's team. We don't know if Sir Keir Starmer didn't look at that. We don't know if Keir Starmer looked at that and decided that was a risk worth taking. But, Chris, that risk has now come back with double, triple jeopardy. This is a terrible look for Keir Starmer.
It really has. I think Kevin Baylock, who has had a very good week in opposing the government on this with a small band of 120 MPs against the Labour Party's 400 MPs, has forced massive disclosure of the vetting information that went to the Prime Minister with that humble address in the House of Commons. I think when she said to the Prime Minister, you allowed yourself to inject this poison back into the government, I think that does capture the drama here because it's spreading through the PM's top team and through the government, frankly, and it's got to be dealt with. And I don't think the PM has lanced the boil yet. I was in Hastings yesterday when the Prime Minister said sorry 5 times, apologised 3 times. He was saying sorry for appointing him, but didn't quite go as far as he needs to go, I think, which is, frankly, I'm sorry I ignored the evidence at the time and appointed him, because there was enough out there from the Financial Times reporting and others. Yeah. We knew about the connection between Epstein and Mandelson, and despite that, the risk was taken to try and get that trade deal with Donald Trump, to get an individual there who can deal with rich, powerful people, who has experience with trade in the European Union. It felt like a risk, and a risk worth taking, because we're looking out in. We thought, well, that's all there, but clearly they must know something. They didn't. They hadn't used all the levers the PM has got, all the state apparatus to do that deep background checks before appointing him, and that is a mistake which the PM is living to regret.
It's worth pointing out the searchers, just to repeat a small bit, I think a really pertinent part of this Metropolitan Police statement, that's from the Deputy Assistant Commissioner Hayley Stewart of the Met. The searchers are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences. So, Chris, that's clearly public office. It's not just the private business givings or doings of Mandelson. Public office offences on the government ticket. Now, on the government ticket, this is clearly narrowing this down. Public office offences. It could also be going back to the European Union when he was a commissioner there, but also as an ambassador. But given information by the Brown regime, going back to that time with the inside information on the bailing out of the Eurozone, the public office time then, the public time office in Brussels, the public time office now, we simply don't know. The point is that this investigation now is so vast. And don't forget, this was initiated in part by Gordon Brown. He kind of wanted the police to get involved. He contacted the Metropolitan Police and was urging them to get involved, because if information that the then Prime Minister gave to Lord Mandelson, as he was then, found its way into the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, that's on Gordon Brown's conscience, a former Prime Minister initiating the scenes that we're now seeing on our screens, an astonishing investigation, search of Mandelson's property there in Camden.
Well, that's right, Martin. Now, misconduct in public office is, we're told, an offence in abuse or neglect of power or responsibilities by somebody holding public office. It applies to anybody in cross-government, in officials, police, judiciary. There aren't many prosecutions on this. It's quite a high bar in the past. But what's happening here is the police are simply going where the evidence takes them. That is what was required by the Prime Minister of the police. He said as much in that question when Ed Davey, the leader of the Lib Dems, said, is there a Russian element here? Or was any help be given to Russia by Jeffrey Epstein? No suggestion that Peter Mandelson was doing that, but there is a suggestion of links between Russians and Jeffrey Epstein in those files released by the DOJ in America. The PM said, The police must go where the evidence takes them. And what we don't know, really, is the limit of the time. We know they're looking at, I think, 3 documents, a policy paper into Gordon Brown about supporting the economy at the just back end of the financial crisis in 2008-9, the sell-off of assets, which could have helped Jeffrey Epstein with his business, the timing of the European Union bailout in that 5-day period between the election in 2010 and the establishment of the coalition government, when Peter Mandelson was still in charge of things in government. And the third thing was the timing of Gordon Brown's leaving office. Again, that wasn't clear either. These 3 things are valuable if you're making money in the fractions of time you need to on the financial markets. Again, we don't know if Peter Mandelson was doing that. He says he was just trying to help and support the government and talk to interested parties, and he would deny that. But it's concerning that we don't know how wide that scope is. Are they looking at what Nigel Farage says about the EU? We don't know.
I mean, the point is nothing needs to be off the table. You know, if you're playing high stakes poker with international trade and you know which cards are going to drop, Chris, that has a huge value. Let's get to my next guest now, and that's the ex-Metropolitan Police detective, great friend of the show, Peter Bleksley. Peter, in one sense, it's gratifying, is it not, to see that everybody is equal before the law. A lord, an ambassador, you're all the same when the old bill come knocking.
Yes, I think the Metropolitan Police need to be given suitable praise here for clearly grasping the seriousness of the situation and acting very swiftly, some 48 hours after PMQs on Wednesday. They've searched 2 addresses. Clearly, I would imagine they were looking for devices, very important, and possibly paperwork. And yes, in this situation, the often criticised Met Police has clearly stepped up to the plate, grasped the nettle and acted accordingly.
From what we can ascertain here, this seems to be they were allowed in the property or entered the property without there being the use of any force. It's not like it didn't look like it was a raid. We haven't got any video footage of that, but it appears that they went in quite calmly about their business in a rather orderly fashion, Peter Bleksley.
Under lawful authority. In other words, with sufficient grounds to carry out a search and perhaps an element of permission. But either way, they clearly fully understood what's at stake here, and that is questionably the future of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So they have acted with all due diligence, I would suggest. They've also got a press statement out very quickly. Let's just rewind to Wednesday, how some people were saying, well, is there overreach on behalf of the Met now, asking for certain documents not to go into the public domain? Well, they've backed that cautionary statement up with action very swiftly, and I think they deserve some credit for that.
But Peter, Christopher Hope here with Martin in the studio. Do you think the police are acting any quicker than they would do in an ordinary case? There's maximum heat on this. It's live on GB News, being played out for our viewers and listeners. Of course, it was raised in Parliament this week to the Prime Minister. Are the police doing what they would normally do, or are they accelerating it?
Policing is so often about dynamism, acting in a dynamic way. Say, for example, when wanted people who are very dangerous are on the loose, and I know that's a completely different set of circumstances, but the police are used to acting very, very quickly in response to terrorism threats, murderers and the such like. This being a completely different case, of course, still demanded a lot of prompt action because many millions of people, I think, in the nation, certainly judging from what I'm seeing on social media platforms, for example, are saying, what on earth is going on here? How could this appointment have been made? They're not happy with statements from the Prime Minister and other politicians, and the Met have really grabbed this, and they absolutely have understood the gravity and the need for prompt action.
So, Peter Bleksley, in this circumstance, if you're on one of these raids now, just to kind of try and take our viewers and listeners inside, you're through the door, you're clearly looking for electronic devices, paperwork, anything that could pertain. Is the property now an active crime scene? Is it off limits to the resident, the owner? What's the mechanics now of this?
That would depend on the given circumstances. Often searches are carried out with an owner being present. Sometimes that's a very sensible thing to do, so that if anything that's incriminating is found, it can be found in the presence of that person, and thereby kind of allays any later allegations, for example. So it always varies. Sometimes you'll go to a property that is empty, but there is a necessity to get in and search it regardless. So there's no hard and fast rules. Policing is often about flexibility, adjusting to the circumstances, seeing what plays out in front of you and acting accordingly.
And we're told, Peter, that a blue box has been collected, a large bag, before re-entering the property. What might be put into those? And if Lord Mandelson is there, what's the legal requirement of him? Does he have to show where things are, help the police? Is he read rights or not? How is he treated in this situation? What happens?
If there are grounds for suspicion that somebody may have committed an offence, then a caution can be administered. Likewise, if a person is to be arrested, then a caution needs to be administered. But this is going to be a situation that requires a degree of flexibility, obviously. And I'm sure the officers will be very, very aware that each and every word, act and deed is going to be subject to the highest scrutiny at some point, quite possibly in a court of law. And they will not want to do anything that would jeopardise the relevance and the acceptance of something as a piece of evidence. Because if something is seized unlawfully, then it can't be put before a court. So officers will know they are under the microscope. They are under the media spotlight. So their every action, their every word and their every deed will be in accordance with the law, procedure and protocol.
Peter Blake, just some fresh information emerging now that the officers arrived, they knocked on the door and they entered the house. We don't know if they had keys or if they were allowed in, but it clearly wasn't, a raid where they smashed their way in, wearing what appeared to be a small body camera. Again, Peter Blake, I'm assuming that's routine, just walking through in real time with that information being gathered on a body cam. That's another essential part of what evidence was gathered where, so they can form a full 3D authoritative picture after the event.
Yeah, body-worn video is almost a staple of policing these days. And when going on a search like this, perhaps of a man in his 70s who may or may not have been present, they are not looking for a serial killer here. They are not chasing terrorists who would want to wipe so many of us from the face of the earth. They are conducting an investigation, I suspect, into an allegation of misconduct in public office. And consequently, they're going to act accordingly.
But Peter, the Times are reporting they've spoken to Lord Mandelson at his London home, but this is not a formal interview under caution. At this stage, the detectives are gathering information. Is that how it works? And they're just basically pulling it all together, work out what they've got, and then work out if they take it further or if they take it no further at all?
It would seem to be entirely appropriate in these circumstances that they search for potential evidence, but if they haven't yet got the grounds for arrest, that search can take place in the presence, say here, of Peter Mandelson. If and when evidence that is sufficient to justify an arrest is discovered, if and when, then I'm sure that arrest will be forthcoming.
Okay, Peter Blake, just to underline the charge, well, not the charge, the situation, misconduct in public office, it can carry a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. Of course, that is if the situation is very, very serious. So the picture emerging now appears to be that Peter Mandelson was at that property, let officers in, clearly assisted them with their investigation. Evidence has been gathered, evidence has been taken away, and we have a right royal drama on our hands. Peter Blexley, thank you for joining us and giving us your expertise. As ever, thank you very, very much indeed. Now, before we go to our next guest, Chris Hope, you're waving, you've got a new line for us.
Well, more information about the house being searched. There are 4 ensuite bathrooms, own wine cellar, a large garden. It was bought, according to the Telegraph, it was discussed the buying of this property with Jeffrey Epstein. It's a Grade 1 listed 4-storey townhouse. Costing almost £8 million. So it's a very valuable mansion, frankly, a smart house in Camden, North London.
£8 million house. You mentioned Jeffrey Epstein was involved in the purchase of it?
Yes, according to the files here, Lord Mandelson Mandelson, forgive me, and Epstein discussed it in April 2010 about buying a pied-à-terre in London. In June 2011, Lord Mandelson sent Epstein an email asking him to look up this house for sale near Regent's Park, we're told. And so it went on. So, again, this property we're looking at on screen there is also linked to Jeffrey Epstein because, of course, Lord Mandelson was very close to Epstein and they discussed virtually everything in their lives. And so he saw his advice was sought on the acquisition of this property, a very expensive mansion in North London.
An £8 million, four-storey luxury townhouse in one of London's most expensive North London areas, butting onto the back of Regent's Park. Jeffrey Epstein involved in the procurement of that property. Now, police officers inside, we understand, allowed access to the property by Peter Mandelson, searching for information to the allegation of misconduct in public office, which carries a maximum tariff of a life sentence imprisonment. What an astonishing story, what an astonishing development. Let's get my next guest on now. That's the political commentator Paul Connew. Paul, welcome to the show. I know you had meetings with Mandelson. You know more about the man perhaps than most of us, and you said a long time ago you always felt this guy was destined for, he was addicted to power, to money, and all of this is an incredible state of affairs. What's your thoughts?
Well, I've written columns both before and after his appointment to the Washington job, and in fact said on air on this station that it was a time bomb, likely to go off, a ticking time bomb. I mean, it's a disaster for the government and for the Prime Minister in particular. I mean, it was known via both the Channel 4 programme and the Financial Times revelation that he was continuing contact with Epstein after Epstein was in prison. In fact, they taken his property when he was in prison. And when you look at Mandelson's past history, and I was also getting the buzz from Capitol Hill contacts, there was a lot more to come in the Epstein dossier when it was finally released. That in fact would be far more serious than anything that had emerged so far. So I'm not at all surprised by what's happened now. The question is, there was also strong rumours on both sides of the Atlantic that there will be some revelations in the next couple of days over Russian connections involving Epstein and Mandelson, possibly Prince Andrew, but I think that's less likely. Which may be linked to why the police have acted so swiftly. But the Prime Minister, I think, will be probably glued to the TV set now. But it really is. His premiership is hanging by a proverbial gossamer thread, and how long he survives, I think, is again another ticking clock. And I don't quite know this story is the story that keeps on giving. It's almost as if nothing that emerges really surprises you.
Paul, what is surprising is the huge sums of money. I mean, an £8 million, four-storey townhouse in one of the most prestigious parts of North London, backing onto Regent's Park. This is normally the place of princes. Of Saudi Arabia.
Well,
if you know, and then we must start to ask questions, Paul Connew, without speculating. Where did all this money come from? Where?
Good question. But another reason why it was such a folly by the Prime Minister and whoever advised him to give Mandelson that role in Washington. His history, his whole history, is that of someone who was desperately ambitious about meeting powerful and very rich people, and money was involved in why he was twice sacked from the Blair government. It is quite extraordinary. I mean, you have a situation where Harriet Harman, who is probably spearheading the cause for the Prime Minister to go because of the election. I mean, she's never been a Mandelson cheerleader, quite the reverse. And everyone's playing her quote, from a podcast she did, when she called the Prime Minister weak, naive, and gullible over Mandelson. I'd agree with that, but I'd add the word malleable, to the list. it was catastrophe to even appoint him. And it's also another interesting thing about this is if you try to analyse what the Prime Minister has been saying, it's unclear whether he personally interrogated Mandelson or delegated it. If you look at it, it's unclear whether he did. Now, if he didn't, because, I mean, apart from being the Prime Minister, this is the former Director of Prosecutions. So who should have done the forensic interrogation other than the Prime Minister? But if he didn't do it and delegated it, I think it's going to be another nail in the coffin of his premiership.
And Paul Conyer, you raised an excellent point there. We were told in opposition, often at the dispatch box as the leader of the opposition, how forensic, how meticulous, how ruthless the Prime Minister was. The former Director of Public Prosecutions, the ruthless and merciless eye for detail. You know,
it's always easier to be forensic in opposition than it is when you are in government. And how.
But Paul, my next point was going to be precisely that. Perhaps that was an illusion all along, or there was a distinct lack of curiosity, a distinct lack of that forensic eye and mind being cast upon Lord Mandelson, which begs the question: why did Mandy get wafted through? Did Mandy get special privilege?
The epitaph here might be: "In curiosity, killed the premiership." I mean, but Morgan McSweeney's position in this, how he's still in place, I'm astonished by. But also, there's another interesting point. We haven't heard whether Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor who sits in the cabinet, was he consulted? Because he was a distinguished diplomat who played a key part in the Northern Ireland peace agreement. But he also was once upon a time Tony Blair's chief of staff, and he would know, he would have had a front seat at the time of Mandelson's various problems in his checkered career. Was he consulted? If he wasn't consulted, why not? If he was consulted, I think this inquiry will need to know what advice he gave, as well as Martin.
Paul, I need to interject and ask you a question I've been asking everybody over these past couple of days. As a political commentator of some great experience yourself, today, seeing this, making the connection, the police raid on an ambassador that was hired by the Prime Minister, is Sir Keir Starmer finished?
I've said before now that I thought he wouldn't survive as Prime Minister. The only question is when does he go? Now, at the moment, there isn't, I think, people can't coalesce around who would replace him. So, so the mechanism,
Paul, I have to move on. Thank you. We're just about approaching the end of the hour. I need to get my next guest in. But Paul Conyer, thanks for your expertise and your passion. I sincerely appreciate it. Let's get my next guest in now. It's the ex-Metropolitan Police officer, Graham Whetton. Graham, astonishing scenes, truly the likes of which we probably haven't seen perhaps ever. This is the Prime Minister and a former ambassador to the United States, hired by the Prime Minister, having a police raid. It's a tawdry, terrible look.
Yeah, senior government official having two properties being searched. I would imagine it probably planned to be simultaneously. So officers from the Met Specialist Crime Team carrying out searches, one in Camden, one in Wiltshire. Clearly the investigation is moving at pace. Albeit a complex investigation. Misconduct in public office can be a fairly complex investigation to conduct. So they'll be looking at any documents, allegations it's passed on information. So that'll be either paperwork documents, electronic devices, etc. So the officers, probably in plain clothes if they're detectives from the Specialist Crime Team, will have entered the properties and then will be taking a very slow and methodical search through both properties, looking for anything that's linked to those alleged offences.
It's important to point out as well at this moment, no charges have been pressed. There's no evidence at all or talk of guilt. This is a meticulous search. We understand, Graham Whetton, that the property was entered willingly. The occupant let the officers in. But have you ever seen anything like this with politicians and police raids? It's just incredible.
No, they are fairly astonishing scenes, and I think you're right to point out. Yeah, no need for many searches I've done in my career. Most of them were forced entries early in the morning. This is clearly doors open. They've entered willingly, albeit with a search warrant, so they can actually have powers to enter. At this stage, you're right to point out, no charges and no arrests made either at this point. The search is part of the investigation. Once you make an arrest, you actually start the detention clock ticking, and you've got a certain period of time then to conduct your interviews, your inquiries. So it's quite right at this stage that a specialist crime team are gathering the evidence first of all, then they will assess the evidence before any consideration for arrests and interviews will take place.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. That's the ex-Metropolitan Police officer, Graham Wetton. Just to wrap up this extraordinary story, you're witnessing pictures on your screen of a raid at a North London property we now know belongs to a 72-year-old man, Peter Mandelson. A simultaneous search carried out in Wiltshire at a second property belonging to Peter Mandelson in relation to misconduct in public office offences, and that can carry a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. An astonishing state, an astonishing twist in the Peter Mandelson scandal, one which will surely haunt the Prime Minister. With a full reaction, don't go anywhere. This is GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. More rain around today, and there will be some at the weekend, but more showery in nature, so better chance of some brighter spells, and it will be turning a little milder. It certainly feels cold out there today. Snow over the Grampians, turning more and more to rain as we go through. Some drier conditions getting into the south for a time, but look, as we go through the night, further heavy bands of showery rain coming into Wales and southwest England, staying pretty soggy in eastern Scotland and across northern England. That brisk wind continuing to feed into eastern Scotland in particular, bringing a chill, but most places staying at 3 to 5 degrees as we start Saturday morning. Saturday will be another day of showers, but for eastern Scotland, another day of persistent rain being fed in from the North Sea by that brisk and cold wind. Yet again, with some shelter, western Scotland should do okay for dry and bright weather, although showers can't be completely ruled out here. The weather turning a little drier in Northern Ireland, although again some showers here, and it'll be a case of watching these bands of showers moving across England and Wales. Some heavy ones, but it won't rain all day. There will be some drier slots in between. Quite a brisk wind blowing along the south coast, but the winds will be lighter over northeast England and southeast Scotland, coming from a different direction as well. So, although there will still be some rain at times, it should feel a little warmer here as temperatures get up to 7 to 9 degrees. In the south, if we see a bit of blue sky, a bit of sunshine, we could get to 10, 11, maybe 12 degrees Celsius. As we go through Saturday night, still plenty of showers spiralling around the country, so nowhere really looks completely dry. Take note of that if you're heading out. And then on Sunday, the main focus for the wet weather looks like being across Scotland at this stage. A different feel for western Scotland, finally getting some rain in here. And the rain turning a bit more showery in eastern Scotland. Further south, better chance of some lengthier drier spells, but as you can see, it's not completely dry. There will still be some showers around.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A92 southbound, there are restrictions between Lochgelly and Cowdenbeath after a broken-down vehicle. On the M4 eastbound, expect hold-ups between Junction 32 at Corriton and Junction 30 at Cardiff Gate following an incident. In Greater Manchester, the M16 northbound is down to one lane on the exit slip at Junction 4 after a crash. In Kent, the M20 eastbound between Junction 3 and Junction 4 has one lane closed after an accident. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major disruption and Grand Central is badly hit. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This year, the adventure of a lifetime could be on us. Courtesy of Riviera Travel, there's a terrific £10,000 holiday for two to be won. Choose from over 30 worldwide destinations like Thailand, South Africa, New Zealand, or even Sri Lanka. We'll also boost your bank account with a fabulous £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Huge drama today. Good afternoon, it's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way and through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's show. Astonishing scene today as the Metropolitan Police are currently searching Lord Mandelson's homes at addresses in Wiltshire and in Camden in North London. The latest pictures there on your screen of two officers entering that property a short while ago. What could this mean for Lord Mandelson? What could it mean for Sir Keir Starmer? And could we be entering the final days of Sir Keir Starmer's premiership? Absolutely incredible scenes in British politics. And this hour, we'll have all the very latest on this huge breaking news story. Do not go anywhere. It was called the political scandal of the century by Nigel Farage, and that was before we saw police detectives today going to two properties forming searches, one at North London, one in Wiltshire, both properties we understand belonging to a 72-year-old man by the name of Peter Mandelson. We understand Peter Mandelson may have been present at the London property. The officers were allowed in. There was no force used. A full search is being conducted. We have spoken with police officers. The meticulous forensic gathering of evidence now of computer devices, of paperwork begins. Dovetailing into the political nightmare for Sir Keir Starmer, the filtering through the Epstein files of the involvement of Jeffrey Epstein, the paedophile, the criminal, with Lord Mandelson. And now we learn fresh Epstein file data to be dumped over the weekend. The political scandal of the century just got even more dramatic. Don't go anywhere this hour. We'll have full reaction from all of the best experts in the business and political reaction as it rolls in from a political establishment in absolute shell shock this afternoon. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so, or scan the QR code on your screens now. Let's get straight to news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. Police are searching addresses in Wiltshire and Camden in North London as part of a misconduct in public office investigation launched into Lord Peter Mandelson. The force says the searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man. They say he has not been arrested and inquiries are ongoing. It says the government will publish shortly, they say, the Mandelson files, Downing Street says. It's not thought any documents will be released today.
It says the Prime Minister remains under pressure from within Labour ranks over the Mandelson scandal. It's thought the total number of government documents related to Mandelson could be close to 100,000. Sir Keir Starmer apologised yesterday to Epstein's victims for believing the peer's lies about his relationship with the paedophile financier. Meanwhile, former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is said to be preparing a bid to oust Sir Keir as Labour leader. Several Labour MPs are calling for Sir Keir Starmer to fire his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. Kemi Badenoch spoke this afternoon.
I think what the government is worried about, and Keir Starmer in particular, is that it will expose just how close Peter Mandelson was to his administration, of helping to appoint reshuffles, deciding who should be in the cabinet. I think that that's what they're really worried about, not the special relationship. And that's why I don't want to see any delay at all. We should get the files, especially those surrounding the vetting and the appointment of Peter Mandelson.
Serial killer Steve Wright has been sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder of 17-year-old Victoria Hall in 1999. Wright is also sentenced to 12 years for the kidnapping of Victoria and 9 years for the attempted kidnapping of Emily Doherty. Wright is already serving a whole life sentence for the murders of 5 women near Ipswich in 2006. Elsewhere, the police watchdog is investigating allegations of harassment, trolling and a threat against a Rotherham grooming gang victim. The Independent Office for Police Conduct launched 2 separate investigations relating to South Yorkshire Police last year, GB News can disclose. The investigations are assessing if South Yorkshire Police was involved in online harassment, stalking and leaking personal information about the victim. In response, South Yorkshire Police said, "We are aware of the allegations and continue to support the IOPC investigation." 3 African countries have agreed on an illegal migrant returns deal with Britain after the Home Secretary threatened visa sanctions. More than 3,000 migrants and foreign criminals from Namibia, Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo will now have their deportations fast-tracked. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood gave them a month to start cooperating or face a sliding scale of penalties that would have culminated in a ban on visas for their citizens. Sir Keir Starmer's flagship Chagos Islands bill has been pulled from the parliamentary calendar as pressure grows on the Prime Minister to rethink plans to hand sovereignty to Mauritius. Labour peer Lord Kempsell confirmed the legislation will not return to the Commons before MPs leave for recess in 6 days' time. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has appeared to soften his stance on the deal, saying Sir Keir made the best agreement he could following what he described as productive talks over the UK-US military base on Diego Garcia. A restaurateur has been found guilty of spiking a woman's drink with a date rape drug at a Mayfair private members club in a bid to overpower her for sex. 63-year-old Vikas Nath laced the woman's spicy margarita after she left him with the drink in the rooftop garden bar at Annabelle's. Southwark Crown Court heard Nath had grown frustrated with the woman's apparent reluctance to have sex with him prior to the spiking incident and took GBL in a vanilla extract bottle with him to the club. Prosecutors said his plan was to drug the woman and take her back to his home for sex when she'd been overpowered or stupefied. A summer camp leader who drugged children with sweets laced with a tranquiliser before sexually assaulting them has been jailed for more than 23 years. Leicester Crown Court heard 76-year-old John Rubin, who ran a holiday camp for at least 27 years, was arrested last year after several children were taken to hospital. Liquid Xanax was found to have been used in some of the victims at Stathern Lodge in Leicestershire. Rubin, who was labelled by his wife as a sadistic, monstrous paedophile, used the cloak of Christianity to carry out his sex attacks on vulnerable children. And preparations are underway in Milan ahead of the Winter Olympics opening ceremony this evening. Italian authorities have tightened security around the Milan San Siro Stadium, which will provide the stage for the main part of the ceremony, where US pop singer Mariah Carey and Italian singer Andrea Bocelli will both perform. Meanwhile, hundreds of protesters are gathering to oppose the presence of US ICE agents and the closure of schools and streets in the city ahead of the opening tonight. The event will combine elements from both co-hosts, Cortina and Milan, seeking to reflect both city and mountain life. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3594 and €1.1507. The price of gold is £3,637 and 16 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 10,321 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. Welcome back now to this huge breaking news story. The Metropolitan Police are carrying out searches related to Lord Mandelson's relationship to Jeffrey Epstein and indeed Lord Mandelson's business arrangements. The Deputy Assistant Commissioner to the Metropolitan Police, Hayley Stewart, she said this. She gave this statement out. I can confirm that officers from the Met Central Specialist Crime Team are in the process of carrying out search warrants at 2 addresses, one in the Wiltshire area and another in the Camden area. And for those watching, that is that Camden address on your screens. We can see 2 police officers there going in to that property owned by Lord Mandelson. The statement continues. The searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man. He has not been arrested and our inquiries are ongoing. Well, it's an absolutely just incredible political story. And I'm joined now in the studio by GB News' political editor Chris Hope, as well as the former Deputy Speaker and the long-serving Conservative MP, Nigel Evans. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Chris, the shockwaves of this are going around the world. We've never seen anything like this. It was already the biggest political scandal in a century, and it just got bigger. Metropolitan Police doing a raid on a London address, and you pointed out an £8 million 4-storey townhouse owned by Lord Mandelson. And if you think where this story started, you know, the former Mandelson brought back in from the cold, the Prince of Darkness, meant to be the man that unlocked the special relationship. This is a political disaster for Keir Starmer.
It's a downfall of Shakespearean proportions. I mean, it's not a raid, it's a visit by police, and they're taking things from the property. They've gone to and fro from vehicles. They've got a blue box and a large bag. We suspect they're taking computers, phones, anything with data on it that might assist their inquiry. They're looking at that period 2009-2010 when Lord Mandelson was in government, when he disclosed information to Jeffrey Epstein. According to these files, 3 areas: the exact timing of Gordon Brown leaving office, the EU bailout that happened between the end of the general election day,
multi-billion euro deal,
hundreds of billions of euro deal, and that 5-day period before the coalition government was set up, and also some advance notice on what the UK might do to restabilise the economy, selling off assets that may... all this information could easily benefit anybody involved in the financial markets like Jeffrey Epstein. So that's why it matters. That's what they're looking at. What we think they're looking at, because they could go wider than that. Or will they look at his time as European Union Commissioner? No suggestion of any wrongdoing there, but Nigel Farage has asked that question already. The PM has said in PMQs on Wednesday the police must go where they want to go, and there's suggestions from the Lib Dems on Wednesday at PMQs that the Russians could have been a beneficiary from Jeffrey Epstein. But again, no suggestion of that from Lord Mandelson. The Tories are getting involved politically. They say that no stone should be left unturned in this investigation. Searching his properties, they say, is Alex Burkhart, the Shadow Cabinet Office Minister. Searching his properties is exactly the right course of action, they say. But all of it just demonstrates, yet again, the appalling judgment, they say, of the Prime Minister and his team in choosing to give Lord Mandelson this job. There was more than enough evidence elsewhere. The FT, reporting by Channel 4, we knew about the connections. There's more than enough evidence, they say, that he shouldn't be brought back into public life. And Starmer did it anyway, they say. It's time for the PM, took real responsibility for this catastrophic mistake. Why they say that is, I was in Hastings with the PM yesterday. He said sorry 5 times, apologised 3 times, sorry for doing the appointment, but not really for overruling the advice he had that was already in there. We told the MPs on Wednesday again, yes, he was told about this relationship, but went ahead anyway. And apologising for that, I think, is where he's got to go to after this weekend. A weekend when he'll be looking into his conscience, according to the Guardian newspaper. High drama played out live on GB News.
It's worth pointing out that the misconduct in public office offence can carry a life tariff. could be a life tariff. Now, this is not, you know, some political frippery, and it's worth pointing out, is it not? Remembering, harking back, change. We offer political change, turning the page on 14 years of Tory chaos, turning the page on sleaze. We now have simply unprecedented images of a US ambassador appointed by a Prime Minister involved in the tawdry business of the gathering of evidence at two properties simultaneously by the police. It's incredible.
It is incredible. I've got some more information here. Two more people have arrived at the property near Regent's Park in central London. They're both wearing body cameras. Those cameras will be picking up evidence that may be used later date, could emerge at a later date. I should say we have approached Lord Mandelson for comment. He's read the message, hasn't replied, but he has said previously this: I was wrong to believe Epstein following his conviction and to continue my association with him afterwards. I apologise unequivocally for doing so to the women and girls who suffered.
I wonder, you sent that message to Mandy?
In the past hour or so.
Well, I wonder if he picked it up or the police. We don't know.
I'm sure he's seeing it himself.
But this is the point. The police, presumably, I don't know, they may seize his phone. Who knows the extent of this investigation? Let's bring in now Nigel Evans. Nigel, politically, we heard so much from the Starmer regime about the chaos, the bedlam of the final days of the Boris Johnson regime. Partygate, losing your job over a slice of cake, seems an eternity ago now. When you see situations like this, nothing as bad as this ever happened to Boris Johnson.
I've been a Member of Parliament for 32 years and I've never seen anything quite like this. It is beyond seismic, and clearly it's rocking Whitehall. I lost my seat in 2024. Had I still been an MP, what would I be doing this weekend? I would be going back to my constituency, facing my electorate at surgeries, and that's what Labour members of Parliament will be doing. There's not a chance that their constituents are going to be saying, what the heck is going on? I thought, you know, we voted Labour in order to bring propriety back into Westminster.
Fix the foundations.
Yeah, I mean...
To turn the page on chaos.
And it's just absolutely worse. I mean, the reality is, right, we're going from a position where just a few months ago I was walking up Whitehall, Donald Trump had done his successful visit to Scotland, and Peter Mandelson walked down, and I had a chat with him for about 10 minutes, and he was very convivial, and we ended by saying, listen, I'll be in Washington in July. Well, give me a shout. He has now gone from the Lucian's embassy in Washington to basically being in his place in North London, welcoming the police, where they are basically seizing any evidence that is going to be helpful into the investigation into the alleged crime of misconduct in public life. This is absolutely... The fall from grace couldn't be bigger.
It's worth just repeating, there have been no arrests. There's no allegations of impropriety, other than we know this is a full and open and live investigation. Lord Mandelson repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, as you'd expect him to do. But back to the political fallout, Nigel Evans. We've had the Labour Party today already turning into like a circular firing squad. Harriet Harman calling the Prime Minister weak and naive. Graham Stringer in this very studio yesterday agreeing Starmer is finished. Liam Byrne, he needs a miracle. That's before this.
Yes.
That was before the police raid. There's already talk of there being a general election triggered if there were to be a coup against the Prime Minister by Angela Rayner, not without her own tribbles, of course, by Wes Streeting, potentially, by Andy Burnham, who can't even get a seat. But on a serious point, if you're the Prime Minister, you're hoping just to limp your way through to the weekend and lick your wounds and get some breathing space. There's no opportunity for that now.
No. Let's be fair. As far as Peter Mandelson is concerned, his career in politics is absolutely over and finished. Where it goes from here, we'll just see what the investigation throws up. Where does the buck stop? And in politics, the buck stops with the Prime Minister. It was the Prime Minister who decided that he wanted Peter Mandelson brought back into politics. It's got to be the plumbest ambassadorial role, Washington. Nothing comes anywhere close to it. And whether it was Morgan McSweeney who was pushing it, because I've read all sorts of things, Morgan, his chief of staff, a protege of Mandelson, saying, yeah, let's get Mandelson, bring him back in, even though clearly there were noises off saying that there were real problems with his continuing links to Epstein. Now, it appears that to satisfy himself, the Prime Minister said, well, let's ask some questions of Peter Mandelson. Hold on, what are the security forces there for? They're the ones who should be doing the vetting. And if the vetting threw up that the relationship between Peter Mandelson and Epstein was way closer, and we now know that that is the case, they shouldn't have gone anywhere near him. The politics as well, Martin, is that they had a very good ambassador with Karen Pierce. Dame Karen Pierce was there. Trump actually liked her. I suspect Trump didn't trust Mandelson because, of course, some of the comments that Peter Mandelson had said about Trump in the past, they're all there on the record. And so there was no urgency to bring Peter Mandelson back. And it seems to me that the buck really does stop with the Prime Minister. He said he was going to bring a whiteness back to, cleanliness back to Downing Street after the revolving door of Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, and then Rishi Sunak at the end. And the reality is, it's got worse.
But isn't the reality also the PM had to find somebody who was a bit different? Dame Karen Pierce was the end of her time as the ambassador in Washington. To find somebody who maybe knew about powerful men, that's Mandelson. Who knew about trade, that's Mandelson from his time as EU Commissioner. Someone who could think outside the box, could oil the wheels with a really unpredictable leader like Donald Trump. I mean, you can understand why he did it, but he won't apologise for doing it.
No. Well, he's saying sorry all the time now, Chris. I'm not quite sure what he's saying sorry about. But no, the reality is Trump liked Karen. She would have given Keir Starmer an absolute conduit straight into the White House. Karen Pierce was somebody that Trump trusted, and yet she was thrown to one side in order to force Peter Mandelson into that role. Didn't need to do it. It's an absolute own goal, and the buck has really got to stop with Keir Starmer. And these MPs now who are going back to their surgeries and listening to their constituents, if there's a pub that will let them into a pub around the country after what they've done to the hospitality trade, they will only have to listen to what the locals are saying. I live next door to a pub, and every weekend I was in that pub listening to what my constituents had to say.
And what do you think voters think? They look at the politicians now, they think they're all the same. I mean, they saw that with the VIP lanes during the COVID pandemic, they saw the MP expenditure scandal back in the day, and now they see this happening. It's all the same back-scratching.
Yeah, well, it's a new low in politics. That's absolutely for certain. And if Keir Starmer thinks that he's going to survive this, think again. The reality is he's dead in the water. Just simply because the Labour Party refused to have the funeral, it doesn't mean that the corpse is going to come back to life. That's simply not going to happen. Politically, I believe Keir Starmer is dead, and it's only now a matter of time as to how they get rid of him. I mean, the Tory party were expert at it. I was secretary to the 1922 committee, and I saw it done on a regular basis, and I was involved in the machinations of getting rid of Theresa May, which, her time was up, quite frankly, and it was. And the Labour Party aren't so good at it. If they want to give me a ring, I'll let them know how to do it.
Sorry, we're 18 months off that election.
Yes.
He personally won a majority of 160, and he's saying in this speech in Hastings yesterday, he sees it himself. I mean, that was his almost a personal mandate. I got that impression.
Martin's just gone through a shopping list of Labour members of Parliament who are prepared to go on the record and say that he needs to go. There's more of them that says that Morgan McSweeney needs to go as well. So, I mean, I think what they are probably going to do is have a complete wipeout. If Starmer goes, Morgan McSweeney goes with him.
Astonishing stuff. Thank you very, very much, Nigel Evans, and you, Chris Oban. I know full reaction is still rolling, and we'll get some more of that. Don't go anywhere. An incredible story. Full reaction to that breaking news. The Metropolitan Police are currently searching Lord Mandelson's homes at addresses in Wiltshire and another in Camden in North London. Absolutely astonishing scenes in what has already been described as the political scandal of the century. And more to the point, could we now be entering the final days of Sir Keir Starmer? Stick with us. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray, are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
5:25 and just another quiet day in British politics. Now, joining me to discuss this astonishing situation is the political commentator Benedict Spence. Benedict, it was already described as the political scandal of the century by Nigel Farage before these incredible scenes of police raids, police visits, whatever you want to call them, at two properties we now know for sure belong to Peter Mandelson. We've never seen anything like it in decades and decades of British politics. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that nothing might even come of this, and this will still be some of the defining images of Starmer's administration. Actually, that's all you need to know, is because, as you said, this is something that hasn't happened, certainly within my living memory. This is the sort of thing that, almost you think about in the abstract as happening in other countries, that their administrations are the ones that have police officers knocking on the door of former members of them. So, as I say, it could literally be that nothing at all comes of this to do with Lord Mandelson, and still, this will be the moment that people remember of all of this. Police officers going into properties owned by a former ambassador to the United States, and perhaps the most senior diplomatic position in this country. And I just think to get to this point from where we were even a couple of weeks ago, I mean, it's astonishing.
Chris O, I believe we have some more information about the number of officers perhaps involved.
Yes, we're being cautious. We're looking at the footage of the home in Regent's Park. We think there could be at least half a dozen officers in there, which gives you, again, we're trying to work out exactly who are the police, everyone's in plain clothes. maybe half a dozen or so, or a few more than that. We're working out numbers, but it just shows the scale of what's happening here, Martin. It's not one or two police, it's more than that. It's a significant intervention in this story. The police have gone round there. They're not raiding it, they're knocked on the door, they've been let in by somebody. The Times are saying the police have talked to Lord Mandelson himself. We can't confirm that. Lord Mandelson has not replied to messages from GB News, but it is significant what we're seeing here. As Benedict says, these are pictures which will echo out through the ages. They will go off with the force of a bomb in Whitehall and Westminster. This is really, really significant. I can't think of it happening recently with a Tory politician in the same way.
And these police officers have been assigned using wearing body cams as well, so everything has been meticulously mapped and scanned and recorded and detailed as they go in and conduct the search. And of course, that's before they even take the evidence away and start to analyse it. Metropolitan detectives we've spoken with on the show thus far say electronic devices, paperwork, clearly, all of that will be now fanned in and submitted as evidence. Worth pointing out, no charges, no arrests. This is an information gathering device. But Benedict Spence, you're absolutely right. The optics of a police raid on an ambassador to the United States, our most cherished international partner, being appointed by Sir Keir Starmer, the forensic, meticulous director of public prosecutions, who didn't seem to apply the same forensic eye of detail to this case. Let's now talk about Sir Keir Starmer. We were talking with Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker and the Tory MP, a moment ago. Sir Keir Starmer would have liked to have gone back to his constituency this weekend and had some time to chew this over, but that now no longer happens. Chris, you got a piece of extra information for us?
No, not yet. We're still looking now. We're looking at the feedback here from what's happening with the police. There's clearly a huge concern here. So Keir Starmer, pressure on him to go over this weekend from Labour MPs. We'll see how that plays out. But yes, really, really interesting. And the question now, of course, is when will we see that man on screen, Lord Mandelson, be spoken to by police? The Telegraph is saying he'll be interviewed by them within days. There was a pressure building on this. We know that Number 10 and the Cabinet Office are cooperating with the police. There's conversations yesterday and today about what information can be given over by the Cabinet Office, by the government, to support this investigation. But the Telegraph saying there could be this speaking to Mandelson himself within days. So we are nowhere near the end of this, Martin.
Benedict Spence, the Prime Minister was already hanging by a thread, already being turned on. Harriet Harman already called him weak and naive. Graham Stringer saying he's finished. Liam Byrne, he needs a miracle. And that's before this. What now for the future of Sir Keir Starmer?
Well, I think he's toast. Many members of the Labour Party clearly think he's toast. He may not think that, but I think when you've got that sort of a mass, a swell of people within his own party who are, if at the very best case scenario, furious that this very much self-imposed wound has been imposed on them, and the suggestion then is that somehow the party would have to sort of rally round him and the government to try and protect him. And I think a lot of people would be saying the same things that all of we are. They would be asking, why is it that this man who, again, let's remember, in the aftermath of the last Tory administration, promised a new grown-up approach to politics. He was going to be methodical. He was going to be serious. That was what we were told. It was a return to serious government. Why has this massive own goal been inflicted when almost everybody else was saying at the time, hang on, there are some slightly dodgy links here that you might want to investigate, and given that the Trump administration was talking throughout its campaign about bringing this stuff to light, they cannot say that it was not foreseen that it might explode.
Yeah, I'm delighted now to be joined in the studio by the ex-Labour advisor, Stella Shantakidou. Stella, you have a solemn look upon your face. These are solemn moments if you're a supporter of the Labour Party. This was precisely the kind of affair, the kind of scandal we were promised would be over. The thing of the past, the Tory sleaze, the Tory chaos, turning a page, and instead, that word change we were promised, things have changed. They've got worse.
And hey, I believe Keir Starmer that when he's saying that he that was 100% his intentions. I believe that he thinks he's a decent man who believed he was taking the correct decisions and that he wasn't unaware of exactly the details of the scandal, because I think that a lot of the information we found in the last week are significant. But at the same time, he has nobody to blame but himself. The reason why this is such a big problem is because he allowed Mandelson to be so fundamental to his Labour project, to his Labour government to begin with. And why did he do that? Because he didn't have the political direction inside him. And yes, there are a lot of things that he can do very well. He does have some leadership qualities. But in allowing Peter Mandelson to be as involved as he was and allow Morgan McSweeney to be as involved as he was, now he has a situation where people are pointing the fingers at them. You have at the moment numerous Labour MPs who are texting anonymously journalists saying that Keir Starmer's days are counted, but you also have people who are now coming and putting their name forward and they are saying, we think his position is not tenable. There is this new website that's popped up in the last day called Hold the Line, which has a photo of Keir Starmer, and it encourages people to put in their email address and their local MP, to email their local MP to hold the line, to come out in support of Keir Starmer. And I think this is just a desperate attempt by some very professionalized politicos with very deep pockets who are trying to show that there is some kind of grassroots support for Keir Starmer,
Stella,
but there isn't any.
You would assume that the Hold the Line club is a fairly sparse club with few members at the moment. Let's face it, who wants to be stapled to this? It's a disaster.
Exactly. And obviously, Keir Starmer has tried over the last week to show how angry he was. We constantly are being told about how angry he is in private, how deeply disappointed, how this goes against everything he stands for. And I get it. I believe him. I believe he's a decent man. But I'm sorry to say that he allowed a bad apple to get too close to the core.
I wonder, Stella, if that's enough. The notion that Sir Keir Starmer didn't really, or it wasn't really his fault. We were told so often in opposition that he was a ruthless, forensic, detail-driven cross-examiner, director of public prosecutions. No detail escaped his eye.
He clearly had the blind spot. I believe that he clearly had the blind spot. He had the blind spot for the wing of the party, which in his opinion, and in the opinion of other people in the party as well, brought them the longest period of Labour victories. That's the new Labour, the Blair era. And a lot of people from that time look at this period and they are thinking, oh, look, lose, 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 Blair, 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 lose, lose, lose. OK.
Stella, I'm going to ask you a question I've asked all of my guests for these past couple of days, and it's very simple, like a one-word answer, if I could. Is Sir Keir Starmer finished?
I think so.
Wow. There we go. You think he's finished. Benedict Spence, I predict I know what you're going to say, but is Sir Keir Starmer finished?
Yes.
Chris Hope, do you think Sir Keir Starmer's finished?
I don't think he is finished because I've been with him a lot in recent days. I think he is someone who won that majority 18 short months ago. I think.
How do you survive this?
Let me finish. I think he wants to hang on and do the job. He's now talking about this mandate he received back in July 24. He's stubborn. He can be ruthless if required. He won't go before Morgan McSweeney goes. That's certainly a flare that will go up if that happens. I can't also see who replaces him. I can't see Angela Rayner doing it. 5 months ago, it was ruled out because she wasn't right for office because of her tax affairs. Wes Streeting, also not clear. I can't see who replaces him. Those 3 reasons why he'll stay in office.
Who'd want the job? I mean, who'd want to go up that ladder at the moment? It's like going up the ladder in the Somme. Going into a flail of lads. Stella, magnificent. Benedict, magnificent. Chris, superb as ever. Loads more still to come on this quiet news day in Westminster. Much more reaction to these Met raids. 2 of them, police visits at addresses in Wiltshire and in Camden. What could all this mean? Are we looking at the final days of Sir Keir Starmer? But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, stay safe. Here is your traffic and your travel update, and don't go anywhere.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. High winds are affecting the A9000 on the Forth Road Bridge. On the M4 eastbound, there are delays from junction 32 Corriton to junction 30 Cardiff Gate after an incident. The M1 southbound in Leicestershire has a collision between junction 21 and junction 20, with 2 lanes closed. On the M40, the northbound exit slip at junction 4 in Buckinghamshire has a crash with 1 lane shut. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major disruption between London Euston and Watford Junction, while Grand Central is disrupted between Doncaster and York For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. More rain around today, and there will be some at the weekend, but more showery in nature, so better chance of some brighter spells, and it will be turning a little milder. It certainly feels cold out there today. Snow over the Grampians, turning more and more to rain as we go through. Some drier conditions getting into the south for a time, but look, as we go through the night, further heavy bands of showery rain coming into Wales and southwest England, staying pretty soggy in eastern Scotland and across northern England. That brisk wind continuing to feed into eastern Scotland in particular, bringing a chill, but most places staying at 3 to 5 degrees as we start Saturday morning. Saturday will be another day of showers, but for eastern Scotland, another day of persistent rain being fed in from the North Sea by that brisk and cold wind. Yet again, with some shelter, western Scotland should do okay for dry and bright weather, although showers can't be completely ruled out here. The weather turning a little drier in Northern Ireland, although again some showers here, and it'll be a case of watching these bands of showers moving across England and Wales. Some heavy ones, but it won't rain all day. There will be some drier slots in between. Quite a brisk wind blowing along the south coast, but the winds will be lighter over northeast England and southeast Scotland, coming from a different direction as well. So although there will still be some rain at times, it should feel a little warmer here as temperatures get up to 7 to 9 degrees. In the south, if we see a bit of blue sky, a bit of sunshine, we could get to 10, 11, maybe 12 degrees Celsius. As we go through Saturday night, still plenty of showers spiralling around the country, so nowhere really looks completely dry. Take note of that if you're heading out. And then on Sunday, the main focus for the wet weather looks like being across Scotland at this stage. So a different feel for western Scotland, finally getting some rain in here. And the rain turning a bit more showery in eastern Scotland. Further south, better chance of some lengthier drier spells, but as you can see, it's not completely dry. There will still be some showers around.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, Parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 6 on this quiet Friday afternoon. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News now for further reaction now to the Epstein-Mandelson house raids. I'm now joined by the political correspondent at the Financial Times, Anna Gross. Anna, welcome to the show. And I want to say a special well done to the Financial Times. You've been driving this story. Your colleague, Jim Pickard, of course, asked the question of the Prime Minister in Bristol, which really set this whole ball rolling. What's the latest from what you're hearing?
Well, it doesn't look good at all for Mandelson himself. Obviously, with these police raids, they're taking it very, very seriously. I think that the issue at stake here is him passing on sensitive information that could be traded on. I mean, it's an extremely serious offence that could carry a very, very serious penalty and a lengthy prison sentence. And we're still seeing, news dripping in from the files. People are still going through them. There's certainly more to be revealed. And so, look, this is an incredibly damaging affair for obviously for Mandelson, but the ramifications just go on and on. I mean, one of the things we've been reporting over the past couple of days is about the company that he set up, Global Counsel, and that they publicly and privately sort of said that they had no dealings with Epstein whatsoever. It's since come out through those files that they actually had very, close ties and received advice from Epstein, and now that the head of Global Counsel has had to stand down. And as you've just been talking about on the show, it's an incredibly damaging incident for Starmer and for his government that's going to be very, very, very hard for them to recover from, not least because of the enormous damage it does to public trust in government.
And Anna Gross, that property on our screens there now, that is the 4-storey townhouse belonging to Peter Mandelson. It backs onto Regent's Park. We understand that's an £8 million house. And Chris Hope was saying that this was procured at the direction or the involvement of Jeffrey Epstein. He was involved. It's got a wine cellar. It's an opulent property. And so all kinds of questions, Anna, are going to be asked about the money. Gordon Brown kick-started the situation a couple of days ago because, of course, that privileged information about the euro bailout, a multi-billion euro bailout. If you got the quick heads up on that information, if you're a speculator, if you're a trader, you could make huge, huge sums of money. And the evidence being gathered at these properties now could lay open a whole fresh scandal. Where did the money come from? How is it made? Who else made millions around the world?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one major line of inquiry, right? Like, what was their money passed between the two? More than we've already discovered. We had that story last Friday, so a week ago now, feels like a year ago, that Epstein was paying money directly to Mandelson and to his husband, Reynaldo, totaling £75,000. I mean, that's a very large amount of money. And subsequently, looking through those files, you can see Mandelson, again, very explicitly talking about the money-making opportunities for him through the connections he was making to bankers, to JP Morgan, to others, and, in setting up Global Counsel, which Epstein advised on. So there are very explicit references to trading essentially off his power, off his relationships, in order to make money, to make vast amounts of money. And the extent of how that money was made and the nature of it is certainly going to rumble on for some time and continue exposing this government at the moment to fresh scandals.
The long shadow of Jeffrey Epstein, taken so many in, royalty, ambassadors, and now may it even take out the Prime Minister. Anna Gross, thanks for joining us, and thanks again for the fantastic work at the Financial Times there, the political correspondent at the FT, Anna Gross. Before we go to the break, Chris Hope, I understand you've got some fresh information for us.
Yeah, no question. And the FT team on this, a brilliant team covering the Epstein scandal. Yeah, new photographs emerging now of police going back in. They've retrieved empty packing boxes from the car. These are those kind of boxes that go flat. They're document boxes. I can count, I think, 3 or 4 being taken back in. So clearly we may be seeing boxes emerging shortly from this property in North London. Bring to you those images as soon as we get them. But it just shows the scale of what's happening.
OK, thank you very much. I want a full reaction from Stella in the studio in a short moment's time. But for meanwhile, let's have a little breather. If you can search some holiday sooner as the forecast of some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Further very heavy rain and strong winds in Spain and Portugal, likely to cause more flooding problems here throughout the weekend. Another spell of very heavy rain, especially across the south of Spain, where river levels are already running exceptionally high. There'll be some showers heading into Italy, also looking a little drier for Greece on Saturday with some sunny spells here, and we'll continue to see some sunshine across the Canaries through the weekend and into the early part of next week, with temperatures rising a little bit here too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
They really are helping people to feel fuller for longer, and that really is the mechanism of the weight loss jab, is that it's making you feel very satiated. It's really slowing down your digestive function, so your body's actually taking a lot longer to break down the food that you have eaten, and therefore people are eating a lot smaller portions, sometimes skipping meals altogether, which is causing some other concerns, but it is resulting in then some really dramatic weight loss results.
Now, of course, for some people, this is great because there are some people who are morbidly obese and all the sort of comorbidities that come with that. So, you know, diabetes, you know, heart disease, all those other things. These tablets or these injections are helping people to avoid those. But what are the costs that it comes with?
Yeah, I think this is what's really important to talk about, the fact that we do know that there are other comorbidities when people are living in larger bodies, but actually when it comes to using any medication, we've got to use it as a tool and not as it's the only thing we do and we carry on regardless. With these weight loss medications, the side effects that we're seeing and the side effects that are continuing to be listed become more and more concerning. So there are fairly sort of everyday, sometimes too often normalised side effects such as nausea, reflux, gastritis, diarrhoea, constipation. There is way too much normalisation around those side effects happening.
And of course, reflux can be quite dangerous because of esophageal cancers.
Absolutely.
And also rotting of teeth. Yes. And also affecting the vocal cords, and that sort of thing can lead to certain cancers, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. All these side effects are the body trying to let us know that it's struggling and it's not doing as well as it would like to do. But we've also got other more concerning side effects such as pancreatitis, gallstones. We're seeing a rise in gallbladder removal surgery, potentially some issues with the kidneys if dehydration becomes an issue as well.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. Huge dramatic day, of course. 2 police raids on properties owned by Peter Mandelson. I'm joined in the studio still by GB News presenter Chris Hope and also by the Labour advisor Stella Sangiakidis. Stella, I want to talk to you about 2 things. First of all, how dismaying is this as a supporter of the Labour Party? You're normally, you know, a very vivacious out. You know, you're walking here happy. You have a funereal mood about you at the moment.
Earlier this week, Martin, we were discussing what is the sort of mechanism that Keir Starmer can use to remove Peter Mandelson from the Lords as a peer. And the whole time, all I could think is, I do not care if you don't have the appropriate rules, frankly. I believe, my personal opinion, I understand he's saying he did nothing wrong. I believe this man deserves to be in prison. I think when I saw that email where immediately after the Prime Minister of his own country took a decision, he was emailing his bankers' friends, essentially conspiring with bankers, helping out bankers after a crash that they caused on the backs of the British people, essentially defending their interests more than the interests of the British taxpayer. I was just completely disgusting. This man is one of the biggest traitors in modern political history we have seen as long as I have been alive. And I think he brings shame not just to the Labour Party, but to the whole country.
You're also, of course, Greek. Greece was annihilated by the bailouts. To this day, the Greek youth unemployment is the highest in the Eurozone. Greece has never really recovered from this if it turns out that money was made off the back of that. How'd that make you feel?
I was 9 years old when Peter Mandelson sent that email to Jeffrey Epstein and all the other emails where he was effectively leaking information to bankers, betraying his own country. And I was thinking, as my family and other families across Greece and across the world really were preparing for a very difficult period, their lives changed forever. My country never found the prosperity that it had before 2008. My family never recovered from the financial crisis. And what was Peter Mandelson doing? He was preparing for a 7-figure salary. He was making sure that when he leaves government, the position that should have been the honor of his life, the greatest honor of his life to be of service to his own people, he was trying to make sure that he's going to graduate into a plum position where he gets to work for 1 or 2 days a week, and the rest of the time he's on yachts around the Maldives and the Bahamas and whatever else. Because that is what those emails were about. It wasn't about the tens of thousands of pounds that Jeffrey Epstein gave for that course for his lover. It was for his partner, excuse me. It was for the position he would eventually get.
OK, Stella, thank you very, very much. I can see how moved you are. Hang on, Chris. Just to repeat, Lord Mandelson has previously denied wrongdoing relating to Jeffrey Epstein, saying, "I was never culpable or complicit in his crimes like everyone else. I learned the actual truth about him after his death." He also said he relied on assurances of his innocence that turned out later to be horrendously false. Chris, very, very quickly, you've got 15 seconds. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Well, we have these pictures to show you, I think, of the document boxes being taken in by police.
We haven't got them, mate.
I count 3 or 4 of them. That shows what might be happening later. We may see boxes leaving this property with evidence inside.
I think that's going to be on Jubes & Co. up next. And just to repeat, we have reached out to Peter Mandelson for comment. An absolutely astonishing day in British politics. And where does this leave the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer? Are we witnessing the final days of Sir Keir Starmer in what is already the political scandal of the century? Up next is Jubes & Co. with Dawn Neeson.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. More rain around today, and there will be some at the weekend, but more showery in nature, so better chance of some brighter spells, and it will be turning a little milder. It certainly feels cold out there today. Snow over the Grampians, turning more and more to rain as we go through. Some drier conditions getting into the south for a time, but look, as we go through the night, further heavy bands of showery rain coming into Wales and southwest England, staying pretty soggy in eastern Scotland and across northern England. That brisk wind continuing to feed into eastern Scotland in particular, bringing a chill, but most places staying at 3 to 5 degrees as we start Saturday morning. Saturday will be another day of showers, but for eastern Scotland, another day of persistent rain being fed in from the North Sea by that brisk and cold wind. Yet again, with some shelter, western Scotland should do OK for dry and bright weather, although showers can't be completely ruled out here. The weather turning a little drier in Northern Ireland, although again some showers here, and it'll be a case of watching these bands of showers moving across England and Wales. Some heavy ones, but it won't rain all day. There will be some drier slots in between. Quite a brisk wind blowing along the south coast, but the winds will be lighter over northeast England and southeast Scotland, coming from a different direction as well. So, although there will still be some rain at times, it should feel a little warmer here as temperatures get up to 7 to 9 degrees. In the south, if we see a bit of blue sky, a bit of sunshine, we could get to 10, 11, maybe 12 degrees Celsius. As we go through Saturday night, still plenty of showers spiralling around the country, so nowhere really looks completely dry. Take note of that if you're heading out. And then on Sunday, the main focus for the wet weather looks like being across Scotland at this stage, so a different feel for western Scotland, finally getting some rain in here. And the rain turning a bit more showery in eastern Scotland. Further south, better chance of some lengthier drier spells, but as you can see, it's not completely dry. There will still be some showers around.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M25 clockwise, between junction 27 and junction 28, a collision has 3 of 4 lanes shut with delays of 1 hour. On the M42 southbound between junction 5 and junction 4, an earlier incident has 2 lanes closed. In Kent, the M20 eastbound between junction 3 and junction 4 has 1 lane blocked after a crash. The Forth Road Bridge on the A9000 is facing high winds. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major disruption between London Euston and Watford Junction and Grand Central between Doncaster and York. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We want you to set off on the destination of your dreams this year, as you could win an incredible holiday for two worth £10,000. Courtesy of Riviera Travel, you'll get to choose from 47 tours in over 30 worldwide destinations. We'll also give you £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure you really make a splash this summer.
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst